Chapter 787. Do you dare fight me? Tianqi Shui was also astonished. Huang Fulong glanced at the crowd. He looked like a dragon emperor with his messy golden hair. It seemed like he could crush the entire world with his claws. His appearance changed, his strength changed, his qi had changed. At that moment, Tianqi Shui, who used to be considered as a goddess by most people in Tianxian, was ashamed. She felt inferior. She had always known that Huang Fulong possessed monstrous physical strength, but he was simple-minded. She always thought that Huang Fulong would never be qualified to become her husband. Even though Huang Fulong was simple-minded, he was brave and strong. What people didn't dare to do, he did. For those two, he was ready to face everyone from Tianqi. Shui suddenly felt small and selfish. Kill him! Shouted someone furiously. Immediately, the atmosphere was filled with ice energies capable of freezing the air. Die! Someone else shouted furiously as rumbling sounds spread in the air. An avalanche-like attack shot out towards Huang Fulong. It seemed like the dragon was going to be buried. Roar! The green dragon roared and Huang Fulong stretched out his arm. His sleeve was cut from the attack. The dragon became even more distinct now, diffusing a dazzling golden light. Boom! Huang Fulong grabbed their arm with his claws. There were dragon scales on Huang Fulong's arms. Avalanche! Gotcha! An avalanche fell towards Huang Fulong, who immediately drowned in it. Several people then threw themselves at him. They wanted to kill him. Vizi! The sound of Yun Fei Yang's bell resonated again as some sound waves spread in the air. Yun Fei Yang joined his hands together and the bell descended from the sky. One person was immediately crushed under it, and the guy next to him started bleeding. His soul was shaking. He realized that he was probably going to die. Vrr. Junemoshi's golden Chong Pao was soaked with blood and twinkling. Its lights were dazzling. Go! A massive amount of vital qi of righteousness emerged and dashed to the skies. A terrifying punch filled with vital qi of righteousness dispirited the crowd. It seemed like it could annihilate everything and most especially those who were evil. That vital qi of righteousness struck many people, causing them to cough up blood unceasingly. Their souls felt oppressed as if they were about to die. Zirr. The golden Chong Pao soaked with blood was dazzling. Punch of righteousness. A massive amount of vital qi of righteousness rose up in the air. People felt inferior when they saw that qi. Those terrifying lights could annihilate anything and destroy evil. Tianji constellation skill. 7 stars connection. Yu Tianji shouted furiously. His fingers rose to the sky and 7 stars appeared. Gradually, they became more distinct and dazzling. The other leaders from different parts of Tianqi gathered and moved towards the 7 stars. Immediately after, it seemed like their strength was absorbed by the stars. Some ice, a river of flames, and some terrifying sword energies appeared. Tianqi Shui looked irresolute. However, she released her strength too and put it in the star too. Then ice and snow immediately fell downwards. The snow blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. Even though the Tianshu star is not being used, it will still be enough to defeat you. Yu Tianji was very confident in his stars. Those stars were oppressing Junemoshi. It seemed like they could destroy mountains and dry out oceans. Terrifying thunders were roaring. The earth and sky seemed like they were going to be crushed. Go! Yun Fei Yang yelled while punching the ancient bell, which emitted incredible buzzing sounds. A magnificent light illuminated the atmosphere and shot towards the 7 stars. The buzzing sound of the bell was deep and long. This time the ancient bell couldn't oppress everything, instead it bounced. Even though it was a powerful weapon, Yun Fei Yang wasn't strong enough. He could only control it to a certain extent, far from being able to exploit the full power of the weapon. Roar! Huang Fulong raised his hands towards the sky and a dragon punch appeared. He seemingly wanted to destroy the stars. Zirr! Terrifyingly deadly energies emerged, unstoppable and capable of annihilating anything. Huang Fulong's dragon couldn't stop those dazzling stars. Boom! Huang Fulong groaned coldly and blood splashed out of his mouth. The other cultivators weren't going to miss this opportunity. They took the advantage of the situation to attack with even more power. They had only one goal: steal the ancient bell and the golden Chong Pao. Boom! Junemoshi released a monstrous amount of vital qi of righteousness. The dazzling golden lights were dreamy. Those lights were so dazzling that people's eyes hurt. Getting too close to the lights would probably be fatal. The 7 stars were oppressive, moving like a furious ocean. The different sorts of strength were falling down all at the same time. It seemed like they were unable to resist. But the vital energy of righteousness was absolutely incredible as well. Huang Fulong was staring at the sky, golden lights twinkling in his eyes. Roar, roar, roar. Huang Fulong roared loudly, but they weren't humane. It was the chant of the dragons. He rose up in the air and the crowd saw a dragon in the sky. There was a dragon silhouette on his body. It seemed like the entire strength contained in his blood had been released. Boom, boom, boom. The dragon raised its scale-covered arm to the sky and grabbed the 7 stars. They were filled with deadly energies, which lacerated the dragon's scales. Blood splashed, however, it didn't flinch as it tried to oppress the stars. Those 3 fighters, desperately, were resisting more than 100 geniuses. They were caked in blood. The ground was already full of corpses. Any genius knew that death was potentially awaiting them when they entered the mysterious world. Treasures sometimes had to be earned through blood. Cultivators continued flocking to the dense and terrifying qi. There were probably some incredible treasures to steal, otherwise, there wouldn't be such a great battle. In the middle of the crowd from Tianqi, Yu Tianji was smiling coldly. He was looking at the 3 people fighting in a frenzy. He wanted to see how long they would be able to resist. The Tianqi group still had many strong fighters. The 2 weapons were probably going to end up in their hands. Yu Tianji, as the leader of the group, would be able to grab one of the weapons for himself only. At that moment he was already wondering which one he would take, the ancient bell or the golden Chang Pao. About a kilometer away, there was some sword qi coming towards them with incredible speeds. Boom! Someone who was flying towards the battlefield became surprised and started sweating intensely. He was concerned about that sword light streaking across the sky like a shooting star. How terrifying! Was it really a human being? He had the feeling that a terrifying sword was piercing through his body. He didn't even have time to think clearly as another silhouette passed him with incredible speed as well. That lithe and graceful silhouette was hard to keep track of. It seemed like it took her no effort to move with such agile in the sky. Those 2 were precisely Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. From very far in the distance, they had sensed the dense qi released by the battle and rushed over. They noticed that 3 people were surrounded by a large group of cultivators. They recognized those 3 to be Jun Mo Shi, Yun Fei Yang and Huang Fulong. Everybody was too focused on the battle, and didn't notice the sword light headed towards them. Someone in the middle of the Tianqi group turned around and saw the sword light, but it was too late. They died by it before they could warn anyone. Sirr. The people from Tianqi suddenly sensed the very sharp qi. A blood qi rose in the air as several people started shaking violently. Immediately after, they only saw a sword light pierce through the crowd. A row of cultivators were immediately cut in half. 10,000 swords, kill! Shouted someone furiously. That voice was so powerful that it made the ground shake. Millions of swords were diffusing dazzling lights at the same time. Those who were attacking Jun Mo Shi and the others died on the spot while the others retreated back. Back to one, said another voice. A terrifying sword light rose up in the air, and a few people were lacerated again. Who was that guy? It was the young man wanted by Shengong and some other influential groups. Lin Feng. Go! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. The 5 friends landed at the top of the entrance of the cave again, and stopped attacking the crowd. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd in an ice-cold and despising way. Yu Tianji and the others were staring at Lin Feng. Too many strong cultivators from Tianqi had died under his sword lights just now. Lin Feng, it seems like you also decided to betray Tianqi. You killed so many of us, Yu Tianji said. His face was filled with murder. Shut the fuck up, shouted Lin Feng furiously while spitting out some sword energy. The elders of Tianqi told us to work together and preserve the cohesion of the nation. But now, in order to steal some treasures, you're trying to kill your comrades from Tianqi. On top of that, you're so shameless that you dare say I am the traitor of the nation. Who do you think you are? A leader? If you are a leader, will you dare fight against me to solve the issue? Sharp sword lights were twinkling in Lin Feng's eyes. His words were as sharp as swords. People from Tianqi were speechless. They had always firmly believed Yu Tianji, but Lin Feng made them rethink their position. As a leader, would Yu Tianji dare fight against Lin Feng? Chapter 788. For Justice. Yu Tianji continued to stare at Lin Feng. He made a few steps forwards and said, "You're right, I Yu Tianji came to the mysterious world as a leader. People from Tianqi all have to listen to my orders." Lin Feng was staring at Yu Tianji, his white clothes fluttering in the wind. He looked like a hero, free and unrestrained, natural. The strong cultivators from Tianqi never questioned what he said, as if he was their god. Yu Tianji was the leader of the Tianji group, but he was also considered the leader of all 7 groups from Tianqi. Someday, he would become a real leader of the Tianji group. Everybody would listen to and respect him then as well. Lin Feng, Tianqi accepted you and gave you a warm welcome. The Snow Eagles are some of our elders who won't prevent people from becoming citizens of Tianqi, but that doesn't mean I accept you. It also doesn't mean that the 6 other groups accept you. A few days before, when you entered the mysterious world, you killed all the people from the Tianshu group. They had offended you first, so you killed them, and I perfectly understand. However, those 2 have stolen precious treasures, so you will hand them over or else I will kill you." Yu Tianji was furious. Yu Tianji's face was filled with murder. He wasn't trying to conceal his true intentions anymore. How ridiculous! I remember what the elders said before. If any person from Tianqi found a precious treasure, they could keep it for themselves. You pretend to be a leader of Tianqi, could it be that you don't even know that? Shouted Lin Feng furiously. Yu Tianji was twisting words to force logic. If Tianqi Shui had seized a precious treasure, or one of its people, I wouldn't try and fight to get them. But, as I have already said, even though the elders of Tianqi accepted them, it doesn't mean that I do. Besides, who are they to get those treasures? Even if they really wanted to join Tianqi, I won't change my mind. Yu Tianji said. He then continued, "They are not qualified to use such treasures, but they are suitable for me. I will not hesitate to fight for that purpose, even if it means getting my clothes a little dirty." "Everything for the empire," said Yu Tianji alone while stroking his chest with his hand. Even if he had to kill, or even go against the elders' will, he wouldn't hesitate. He would fight, that's how he was, and he was now more determined than ever. Just a load of crap. Why don't you admit that you are only motivated by your own personal interests? You want the treasures all for yourself. Lin Feng said while his entire body released sharp sword energies. He then shouted furiously, "Talking too much is of no use, let's fight. You say that you want to punish those who betray Tianqi in the same manner I, Lin Feng, represent Tianxian. I also kill traitors like you. Tianxian is an artery of Tianqi. Why would we listen to your orders?" Yu Tianji felt fearless as he sensed Lin Feng's battle energy. "I know that you have received the 3 elders' instructions, and that you are very strong. Your sword intent is already level 6. To be honest, I really like you. If you were the one who had stolen the treasures, I might not try to steal them. I think that you can rise up within Tianxian. However, since you are protecting those 2, tensions arose between you and I. If you lose, I will not kill you. However, those 2 will have to hand over the treasures they stole." Yu Tianji said slowly, sounding incredibly self-confident. "What if you lose?" shouted Huang Fulong. "Lose," said Yu Tianji, smiling in a cold and detached way. He glanced over the 5 people on top of the cave and said, "Amongst all the people on the 7 snowy peaks of Tianqi, apart from you, who dares disobey my orders? They don't, because I am their leader. I am the leader of the highest of the 7 snowy peaks, Tianji. How could I, Yu Tianji, lose? Do you really think that it's that easy to become a Tianqi leader?" Yu Tianji seemed extremely confident. Lin Feng and the others were staring at him. Indeed, the Tianqi Empire was an empire of medium quality. Thanks to the incredible cohesion of its members, it had an excellent reputation. The snowy peaks of Tianqi constituted the soul of the empire, and Yu Tianji was one of its young leaders. Maybe in the future, Yu Tianji would really become the leader of the empire. It almost seemed like Lin Feng and the others were realizing that they had underestimated Yu Tianji. Besides, Yu Tianji knew that Lin Feng had 3 Zun teachers. He also knew that Lin Feng's sword intent was level 6. But he didn't look scared whatsoever. The only thing one could see was his battle energy burning all around his body. However, even if Yu Tianji wasn't scared, could Lin Feng be scared? He was also releasing battle energy. During the short period of time he spent in the Tianqi region, He practiced cultivation and learnt a lot. Coupled with the knowledge obtained in the mysterious world, Lin Feng could kill people of the 9th Xianqi layer easily. He hadn't had a difficult battle for a while now. Keep dreaming, you're saying that if you win you'll get the precious treasures. But when we ask you what will happen if you lose, you think that replying that you will not lose is enough. What if Lin Feng just said that he wasn't going to lose as well? Huang Fulong was furious. He was surrounded by waves of energy. Dragon energy is flowing in your veins. I would have never thought that Tianqi would comprise so many geniuses. How great. I said it already, I will just take those 2 treasures as they are suitable for me. I will not kill you. If I lose, I have no item to give you, otherwise I would give them to Lin Feng. Bullshit, you pretend to be a leader so it means that you're a leader? Who acknowledges you? Fade Huang Fulong in a disdainful way. They all do. If Lin Feng wins against me, I swear that from today on Lin Feng will become the most respected young man of Tianqi, said Yu Tianji. Huang Fulong wanted to say something but then he heard Lin Feng say, I agree. Lin Feng and Yu Tianji were surrounded by battle energy rolling in waves. Ready to fight. How exciting, said Yu Tianji smiling. He glanced at the others, his eyes were twinkling in a cold way as he said, if we fight, I fear other people will not remain calm. Tianqi people, listen to me, I order you to protect those 2 treasures so that I can take and use them after. The strong cultivators of Tianqi slightly nodded. Nobody contradicted him, especially all the leaders from the snowy peaks of Tianqi each year. They all learnt from each other's by interaction. They were the only ones who realized how strong Yu Tianji was. For the others, his strength was unfathomable. Surprisingly, you are quite self-confident, said Lin Feng, whose body was surrounded by sharp energies. Yu Tianji had immediately ordered them to keep and protect those 2 treasures for him. He was wildly conceited. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd and noticed that they all looked restless. If he fought against Yu Tianji, the others would go insane and would try to steal Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang's treasures. Lin Feng looked at Jun Emoshi and the 2 others and said, How do you feel? I feel like drinking alcohol, said Jun Emoshi while smiling. His dazzling golden robe was fluttering in the wind. Indeed, alcohol, said Yun Fei Yang, also smiling. Even though he was injured, he looked as free and unrestrained as before. A strong wind started blowing and clouds were rising. Huang Fulong was giggling in a silly way. Lin Feng looked at his group of friends and smiled in a resplendent way. He then said, looking joyful, You the alcohol. Tang Yu stretched out her hand as a multitude of hot unit flasks appeared. She knew that Lin Feng enjoyed drinking strong alcohol, so she had prepared plenty of flasks from the Dragon Mountain Empire. They grabbed the flasks and looked excited. They had the opportunity to drink together. How great! Xiao Feng and I have sworn brotherhood as cultivators. Today I, Lin Feng, and all my brothers and sisters will, in the same way, offer a grand and spectacular show. We're going to drink happily and kill wholeheartedly. Cheers! Shouted Lin Feng while lifting his flask up in the air. The flask broke into pieces and the strong alcoholic hot unit appeared in the air. Lin Feng opened his mouth, abruptly started sucking in the liquid. In a flash, all the alcohol was flowing down his throat. The strong and spicy alcohol had a very pleasant taste. Even though the others didn't know who Xiao Feng was, but they also felt high-spirited and vigorous. They wanted justice to reign over the world. They raised their flasks filled with alcohol. Enjoying the strong alcohol left them joyful, free, unrestrained and independent. Life was short and difficult, especially the cruel world of cultivation, deprived of emotions. Nobody knew when it had become acceptable to kill others for one's own personal interests. Having some intimate friends, being able to drink happily and slaughter others together, wasn't that a great way to spend time with friends? Cheers! Shouted the 5 friends happily. They looked peerless and magnificent. The crowd stared at them as they drank. They couldn't help but feel strange. On the one hand they were jealous, on the other hand they felt sad. The world was restless, personal interests were like sharp swords, and killing people was abstract. Being able to drink alcohol happily and kill others with one's friends was something rare and difficult to achieve. Some people spent their entire lives trying to become better cultivators. They were trying to excel in the field of cultivation. They were trying to reach the apex of an abstract and intangible field. In the end, they never regretted it. Chapter 789. The 7 starlights. The alcohol was flowing through Ling Feng and the others. Their bodies felt like they were burning. It was a bit painful. "Arr!" groaned Huang Fulong. The alcoholic energy was quickly disappearing. "Fight! Let's fight!" Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang shouted loudly. The sound of the ancient drums kept resonating. The golden robe was dazzling. The air was filled with battle energy. Blood was definitely going to taint the ground. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Yu Tianji. He was surrounded by an incredible sword light which could annihilate everything. Looking all-conquering, Lin Feng seemed like he could kill anyone. "Fight," said Lin Feng while making a step forwards. Looking majestic, sword light was soaring to the skies. It seemed like his body contained 1,000 whistling swords which were ready to lacerate the sky. How terrifying, thought the crowd while staring at him. Lin Feng was extremely strong. As expected, his sword intent really was level 6. With his strength, he could already be defined as a hero. The only problem was that he didn't know how strong Yu Tianji was. The young Tianqi leader probably wouldn't disappoint. Every Tianqi member was staring at Lin Feng. None of them would be able to defeat Lin Feng. On top of that, Lin Feng could easily slaughter all them at once. Nobody could resist his level 6 sword intent. They then looked at Yu Tianji as if they were trying to see through him. They didn't know exactly how strong he was. Between him and Lin Feng, who would win? If Yu Tianji won, the 2 treasures would be his. Considering his strength, if Yu Tianji won and obtained the 2 treasures, he would become terrifyingly strong. Of course, if Yu Tianji lost, would he really accept Lin Feng as their leader, respected by the many people of Tianxian Mountain? Yu Tianji can't lose, he can drain star energy. His strength must be endless. Even if Lin Feng's sword energy is incredibly strong, he will still lose to Yu Tianji, thought the crowd. They were very confident when it came to Yu Tianji's abilities. He was young leader of Tianqi, and they had never heard of him losing any battle. An infinite amount of sword chi moved towards Yu Tianji. Even though it hadn't yet reached him, it seemed like it could already cut him in half. "Snow!" shouted Yu Tianji. In a flash, it seemed like the entire surroundings were metamorphosing into a boundless field of snow. Snowflakes slowly fell from the sky and the ground was covered by a layer of ice. The landscape looked majestic. Intent level 6. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng's sword intent was level 6. That was already incredible. But Yu Tianji's snow intent was also level 6. He could make the earth and the sky freeze. Boom! Lin Feng stamped heavily on the ground as a terrifying sword chi rose up in the form of violent waves, all of it moving towards Yu Tianji. Yu Tianji's snow intent was level 6, but Lin Feng didn't seem worried at all. He kept releasing incredible amounts of energy which dashed to the skies. After all, if Yu Tianji hadn't been strong, fighting against him wouldn't be fun. Snowflakes were floating around in the atmosphere. Things were very cold. It seemed like the entire world was freezing. The terrifying sword chi seemed like it was being blocked and frozen. When it got near Yu Tianji, it just stopped moving until it disappeared. How strong! I can't fight against them. I have to steal the treasures while they are still fighting. Otherwise, I won't have an opportunity later. People in the crowd had different thoughts. Yun Fei Yang and Jun Emoshi were incredible when they used the ancient bell and the robe. How terrifying would it be if those items ended in Lin Feng and Yu Tianji's hands? Nobody would ever be able to resist against them. Terrifying waves of energy were bursting and rolling in the atmosphere, fusing together. Those people had precisely come to the mysterious world to steal treasures. Now they had an opportunity. How could they miss it? Die! Boom, boom, boom. A deadly chi rose up quickly and seemed like it was burning the atmosphere. Jun Emoshi and the others had prepared themselves earlier. They didn't need anyone to help them. Jun Emoshi was surrounded by a dazzling and flashing gold light. Yun Fei Yang looked all-conquering using the ancient bell which resonated loudly. Huang Fulong was surrounded by dragon chi and sweeping away all obstacles. Tang Yuyu was using her agility technique, looking graceful and agile, while she was also released fists filled with a monstrous strength. In a flash, it seemed like a huge war had started. Having the opportunity to come to the mysterious world was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Fighting was the very objective. Lin Feng and Yu Tianji were in the middle of the crowd fighting. Lin Feng seemed like he was becoming stronger with each step he made. His sword energy was dashing to the skies, lacerating everything. At that moment, the entire atmosphere was already entirely filled with sword energy. It seemed infinite and furious, like a tsunami. Even though Yu Tianji's snow intent was level 6, it couldn't stop the deadly sword energy. The snowflakes continued to be lacerated. Yu Tianji didn't look scared, he looked calm and solemn. He joined his two hands together, making some gestures and pointed them to the sky. In a flash, it seemed like 7 stars were attracted to him. They became even brighter than the scorching sun. 7 star patterns appeared on Yu Tianji's body. He is using the power of the stars. Lin Feng looked surprised. Sunlight fell down onto the infinite sword energy. 10,000 swords were lacerating everything as the dazzling sun was burning brighter. That was the perfect fusion of sword and fire intent. Sword formula, kill! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. A sword streaked through the sky like a meteor. The infinite number of swords and fire were one in the atmosphere. The swords and raging flames invaded the atmosphere. Deathly sound waves were rolling in the air. The power I can drain from the stars is endless, said Yu Tianji. The 7 stars were so bright that they seemed to merge. In front of him, starlights were crisscrossing as they turned into a dazzling star pattern diffusing an infinite light. Boom! The deadly sword and fire crashed onto the stars. The crowd couldn't keep their eyes open anymore. Kaboom! A loud sound resonated. Among the 7 stars, 3 had broken. The 4 others suddenly seemed less shiny for a second, but then started dazzling again. Lin Feng was stupefied. Yu Tianji was, as expected, very strong. His powers were so mysterious. Even without relying on his 6 friends' help, he was still extremely strong. Lin Feng's fire and sword intents had only been able to destroy 3 stars. Stars can never be destroyed, said Yu Tianji, sounding calm and indifferent. The 4 stars were diffusing even brighter lights which were twinkling chaotically, while the other 3 stars, which had just been destroyed, appeared again and started diffusing dazzling lights. Lin Feng looked surprised. Yu Tianji's powers were really mysterious. The cultivation world was definitely a strange one. Lin Feng couldn't understand all of its mysteries. The ways to become a powerful cultivator were infinite. They seem less strong, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng was convinced that those stars could be destroyed. Indeed, the 3 stars which had just reappeared were not as powerful and shiny as the other 4. Die! Lin Feng stomped on the ground, and in a flash, an infinity of sword lights moved towards the starlights again. Kaboom! 2 more stars were destroyed. Out of 7 stars, only 2 were as bright and dazzling as the beginning. Yu Tianji was astonished. He wouldn't have guessed that Lin Feng would understand the mystery of the stars. He looked cold and detached. He shook his hands as the 7 starlights started revolving insanely. They then fell down from the sky towards Lin Feng. Using the power of the stars, he was directly trying to oppress Lin Feng, whose sword power immediately became much weaker. What a terrifying strength! It seemed like he couldn't escape the starlights. The starlights were destroying the atmosphere. Their deadly chi was incredibly strong. Break! Shouted Lin Feng while raising a finger towards the sky. An incredible and all-conquering sword intent was condensed in that finger. The infinite amount of sword intent turned into 2 swords which then lacerated the 2 remaining stars. The 7 stars had weakened greatly. Break, break, break. Lin Feng kept punching the stars unceasingly while extremely loud and resonating sounds spread in the air. Then the 7 stars vanished like a puff of smoke. Several snowy hands launched out at Lin Feng. Yu Tianji wanted to bury Lin Feng with them. Snow fists kept streaking through the sky at Lin Feng. Lin Feng made some gestures with his hands as the demon strength kept flowing. His strength seemed infinite and indestructible. He assaulted the snow fists, destroying them one after the other. Finally, the 2 silhouettes appeared again in the air. Lin Feng and Yu Tianji were staring at each other. An incredible battle energy surrounded them. I can see that you have used all your skills, said Lin Feng in a cold and detached way. The 7 stars were supposed to be indestructible, but Lin Feng had destroyed them. Then Yu Tianji used the snowy mountain but hadn't managed to kill Lin Feng with it either. What else could Yu Tianji do to compete with Lin Feng's all-conquering sword? I have one last method, said Yu Tianji while smiling in a strange way. My name is Yu Tianji Linfeng. I will show you why. I will show you what kind of power a young leader of Tianqi can have, said Yu Tianji. After that, he raised his hand and in a flash, 100 suns appeared in the sky. It was the Great Bear's radiance, illuminating the earth. It was as bright as the sun. So you want to use the power of the stars again, said Linfeng in a solemn way. Yu Tianji's abilities were really unique. Those from Tianqi raised their heads and stared at the brilliant stars while whispering, "The unfathomable and divine Tianji." The stars in the sky were becoming brighter and brighter. More snowflakes appeared in front of Yu Tianji. The stars were shining upon those snowflakes. "Stars, please lend me your strength," said Yu Tianji while joining his hands solemnly. His voice sounded holy. In a flash, an infinite amount of starlight condensed and turned into a terrifying sword light. In that sword light, a fire ignited as well. Yu Tianji's body was seemingly surrounded by a demon light as well. That light was cold and extremely powerful. People's eyes were twinkling with stupor. Linfeng's pupils shrank. What was going on? How was that possible? Sword intent. An extremely powerful sword strength. Those flames, the fire of the scorching sun. There was that demon chi as well. Yu Tianji had seemingly turned into an ancient demon. Linfeng was astonished and speechless. Those 3 skills belonged to him. Yu Tianji could borrow the power of the stars, which had borrowed Linfeng's strength. Linfeng looked at Yu Tianji and saw that his eyes were starting to change. They looked evil, not like those of a human being. What a terrifying skill, thought Linfeng, whose heart started pounding. Yu Tianji was able to use his opponent's skills right after having seen them. Yu Tianji's power was unfathomable. It was as if he had been omniscient. The young leaders of Tianqi were, as expected, unique and very strong. The young leaders weren't weak at all. The lights of the fire and sword condensed. Inside that light were some starlights as well. A terrifying chi was whistling in the air and condensing. It seemed like Yu Tianji's attack was, this time, definitely going to defeat Linfeng. Yu Tianji started running like a madman at Linfeng. Linfeng had to use a stronger attack than all of the attacks he had just used, otherwise he would lose. Yu Tianji is going to win now. Some people in crowd though while gazing at the silhouettes in the sky. There is no suspense anymore. Yu Tianji is way too powerful. His power is unfathomable. At that moment, everyone was astonished and amazed by Yu Tianji's power. Everybody thought that the battle was already over, and that Linfeng couldn't win anymore. There was no way he could use stronger attacks than those he had just used. That was impossible. Linfeng stared at Yu Tianji in a calm and solemn way. Linfeng had already reached a point of no return. All he could do was surpass himself and fight. Linfeng closed his eyes. 81 vein patterns appeared, from which energies flowed in his brain. Each vein pattern was different from the next. A terrifying deadly sword energy appeared around Linfeng and started revolving with incredible speed. The atmosphere was filled with sword lights. It seemed like there were millions of furious swords in the air, as if a mountain was collapsing, as if the seas had gone insane. A real genius. Yu Tianji was staring back at Linfeng. He would have never thought that Linfeng would remain fearless in this situation, and on top of that would be able to release such a terrifying battle energy. Linfeng, don't worry, I will not kill you. We both belong to Tianqi, and I am a young leader. You can be my vice leader. Together, we can reign over the Gan region, said Yu Tianji, sounding indifferent before adding, be careful. The sword sounded furious, the flames were burning madly. The demon chi was rolling in the atmosphere. The stars were dazzling, the ice was freezing everything. Yu Tianji was releasing 5 types of energies at the same time. In a flash, gigantic sword lights filled with fire energy were released in the sky. Linfeng wasn't focused. His countless swords became one, but it didn't attack. It remained in front of him, in him. Linfeng's body started burning. He then disappeared, and where he was standing appeared a sword. It seemed like there was a human being in that all-conquering sword. Linfeng, for the first time, had become a real sword. Chapter 791. The leader Linfeng had turned into a real sword. His numerous swords became one, which then penetrated into his body. Lin Feng had fused together with the sword and transformed into a sword. That action made everybody's heart start pounding. Lin Feng had surprisingly turned into a sword. In order to become a sword master, one had to understand intent, then sword intent, then human sword fusion. However, when using the human sword fusion, the cultivator only looked like a sword, but the cultivator was still a person and the sword remained a sword as well. But at that moment, Lin Feng had turned into a real sword. It wasn't a mere human sword fusion. After reaching a certain level, can people really turn into swords? Many people couldn't believe their eyes. Was it really happening? People were people, could they turn into weapons, into swords? However, what was happening in front of their eyes proved to them that it was real. Lin Feng had turned into a sword. It's a hallucination. It must be a hallucination. What an incredibly powerful magic power. He really looks like a sword, exactly the same, thought many people. Their heart was pounding. Lin Feng had really turned into a sword. How was that possible? How was Lin Feng able to do that? That was an unprecedented powerful skill. Sword formula second phase, one human being and one sword could fuse together. It was impossible to see the difference. The user really looked like a sword. A sword light twinkled. There were no rumbling sounds or anything like that. There were no oppressive forces in the air either. There was just a sword light streaking across the sky, all-conquering and indestructible. The 5 types of energies turned into 5 sword lights and collided with Lin Feng's terrifying sword. In a flash, those 5 sword lights disappeared. No matter how strong he was, at that moment there was only one sword left. Yu Tianji's heart started pounding violently. His eyes, which were filled with starlights, had lost their splendor. That sword was way too terrifying. Lin Feng's body had really fused together with the sword. That wasn't just a level 6 sword intent, that wasn't just a powerful sword skill either. It was the result of Lin Feng's true comprehension of swords. Lin Feng had created an incredible and all-conquering sword. Some cracking sounds spread in the air. Yu Tianji was stupefied. In front of him, the sword stopped and a Lin Feng silhouette appeared. Yu Tianji and Lin Feng were in the air, standing silently, staring at each other. They both looked majestic and unruly. I lost, said Yu Tianji to Lin Feng. If the sword hadn't stopped a moment ago, it could have killed him. He had lost the battle. The strong and enigmatic Yu Tianji, the young leader of the main group of Tianqi, had lost against Lin Feng. Yu Tianji sighed. He felt like he was dreaming. The crowd was just as astonished, especially the people from Tianqi. Yu Tianji, the enigmatic Yu Tianji, had lost against Lin Feng. That was astonishing. Yu Tianji had lost against a young man about whom they had never heard before. However, Yu Tianji couldn't be blamed for that. He could borrow the power of the stars, use incredible starlights, use a snowy mountain as a weapon and crush others. On top of all of that, he could borrow the power of the stars to imitate his opponent's skills. All those skills were extremely powerful, but in the end Yu Tianji had lost. One sword had been enough to stop a multitude of skills used at the same time. Lin Feng had reached such a high level that he could look down at the world. His sword was everlasting and resplendent. Lin Feng, I lost and I will keep my promise. From today on, you are a leader of Tianqi, said Yu Tianji slowly while sighing. Tianqi people were surprised. Lin Feng was a new young leader of Tianqi? Was the future of Tianqi in Lin Feng's hands? Lin Feng looked at Yu Tianji. Were all the cultivators in the mysterious world as strong as Yu Tianji? From now on, Tianqi people will listen to your orders, said Yu Tianji. Yu Tianji was a formidable opponent. Without his level 6 sword intent, his sword formula and the 81 patterns, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Yu Tianji, or at least it would have been very difficult. Forget about it, I can't lead them. Just stop provoking me and that'll be enough, said Lin Feng in a cold and detached way. I, Yu Tianji, always keep my promises. People from Tianqi are not the way you imagine. I will personally kill anyone who doesn't listen to you, said Yu Tianji. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. Okay, fine. Let's do it your way. I will lead them. Now kill anyone who's trying to steal the items, said Lin Feng coldly, looking at the people on the ground. Those from Tianqi looked surprised. Was Lin Feng their new leader? Even though they had the impression that everything was just a dream, people had to listen. Lin Feng had defeated Yu Tianji. In Tianqi, he was now the strongest cultivator. He was a leader. Tianqi's future would be in Lin Feng's hands. With such a great leader, Tianqi would rise steeply. If the young people of the empire were strong, then the empire would rise up. With Lin Feng's influence and power, even those who were not so strong in Tianqi would benefit from his remarkable abilities. He would be respected by everyone. Everybody understood that. Yu Tianji understood that as well, but he had to renounce his leading position to accept it. In a flash, the atmosphere was filled with ice chi. Seemed like everything was going to freeze. Snowflakes started fluttering around everywhere in the air. In that snowy world, blood was staining the pure and infinite whiteness. Jun Emoshi and the others' eyes were filled with murder. Those who wanted to steal the items were insane. They had to be merciless and slaughter them. One had to kill others in order to not be killed. If anyone wanted to kill Jun Emoshi and the others, then they would show no mercy. Yu Tianji jumped forwards and stepped on the ice. A sword appeared and someone was beheaded. The blood on the ice immediately froze. Lin Feng was still surprised by Yu Tianji. He was really strong. Yu Tianji could still use the power of the stars to use Lin Feng's abilities. At that moment, there were no incredible starlights, but Yu Tianji could still use that sword to kill others. Even though Yu Tianji's sword attacks weren't as powerful as before, that kind of skill was still terrifying. Lin Feng jumped forwards as well and started killing enemies. Each of his attacks could take one person's life. Lin Feng kept killing enemies one after the other. Many silhouettes were twinkling, they were starting to escape. Tianqi's people were fighting. Lin Feng and Yu Tianji had joined the battle as well. Blood was splashing everywhere. For those who wanted to steal the items, it was a nightmare. The massacre continued for a while. The vast territory covered by a layer of ice was already stained by blood. It looked brutal. Silence invaded the atmosphere. Piles of corpses were littered everywhere. Rigid corpses. Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang were also injured. But Jun Emoshi had an immortal spirit, so his injuries healed in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng's sword made of pure qi slowly disappeared. He was staring at the crowd, looking like a warlord. Those Tianqi people didn't look up at him anymore. They still couldn't accept the fact that Lin Feng had become their leader. I forgive everyone for what has happened before. Let bygones be bygones. However, in the future I will not tolerate any internal disorder. If I see people from Tianqi fight each other again, I will not hesitate to kill them, said Lin Feng coldly, making the crowd feel nervous. I have something else to add. Even though we could stay together to remain powerful, there is one problem. If we stay together all the time, will we be able to find treasures? And if we do, how do we share them? Said Lin Feng. If they stayed together and found treasures, only a few of them would be able to keep them, and that would be unfair for the others. If you want to find treasures, stay alone and rely on your own strength. If you find treasures, you can keep them for yourself. Besides, if we separate, we'll have more opportunities. If you think that you are not strong enough, then you can stay with a few other people. The crowd didn't think he would separate them. They came together and stayed together so far. Their unity made them powerful, but Lin Feng wanted them to separate. However, everybody had to admit that Lin Feng made sense. Yu Tianji's eyes were twinkling. He glanced at the crowd and said, I was wrong. If you don't go through life with threatening experiences, even if we share treasures, we will never be able to become stronger. The most important thing for a cultivator is to rely on their own self. Chapter 792. The demonic emperor. Those from Tianqi slowly dispersed to move on alone, but here were some who stayed in small groups. That territory seemed to be boundless, and there were surely many precious items there. Jun Emoshi had obtained the golden robe and Yun Fei Yang obtained the ancient bell. After obtaining those incredible treasures, nothing was impossible. Besides, Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang had discovered a cemetery in the cave, which might have some incredible Zun cultivators buried there. Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang raised the mountain containing the graveyard to the ground, uncovering all of the corpses. Lin Feng, said Jun Emoshi. He apparently wanted to say something. What's wrong? Said Lin Feng, looking at Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang. We just finished searching the underground palace and found a third item. Jun Emoshi was very excited. 3 treasures. Lin Feng was also excited. Apart from the golden robe and the ancient bell, What else had they found? Yes, said Jun Emoshi while shaking his hand. Suddenly something appeared. A pair of golden gloves. Those gloves were as resplendent and dazzling as his robe. The gloves and robe were probably part of an incredibly powerful set. At first glance, one could see that those were at least Tian-level weapons. Jun Emoshi handed the golden gloves over to Lin Feng, who took them and released some pure qi in them. In a flash, the golden light became much brighter and dazzling. An all-conquering qi was released. I have a feeling that the blood sword is far from being at the same level as those gloves, thought Lin Feng. He took out the blood sword and a ray of light streaked across the sky and crashed onto the gloves. A light metallic sound spread in the air. The golden gloves started shining in a strange way. Lin Feng scrutinized the gloves and as expected, there wasn't a single scratch. Lin Feng gave the golden gloves back to Jun Emoshi, who shook his head while smiling. Lin Feng, I already got the golden robe, it's incredibly powerful. Taking the gloves as well would make me quite a greedy person. You should take them. I don't need them, said Lin Feng, also shaking his head. He was a sword cultivator. His attacks were extremely powerful. Those gloves couldn't be as powerful in his hands as they could in Jun Emoshi's. You can give them to someone else, said Jun Emoshi, smiling and glancing at Tang Yu. Jun Emoshi was really an altruist. Even though he could personally give the gloves to Tang Yu, he knew there was a relationship between the two. He wanted to give them to Lin Feng first, who would then gift them to Tang Yu. You take those gloves, Lin Feng said while giving the gloves to Jun Emoshi. Jun Emoshi's idea wasn't bad. Tang Yu was surprised. She first looked at Lin Feng, then at Jun Emoshi and smiled in a resplendent way. She didn't say anything to be polite and immediately took the gloves. She felt gratified to be associated with people like Lin Feng, Jun Emoshi and the others. She felt naturally free around them. Lin Feng and the others cared more about her than precious items. Gifting her the gloves was only natural. Lin Feng, we discovered a secret in the underground palace. Yun Feiyang was smiling at Lin Feng. What secret? The world we were transported to really is a part of the great emperor's world, and it also contains his grave, said Yun Feiyang. The legends were true. The world was the great emperor's grave. From the moment we came in, we keep seeing corpses everywhere. Those who had died immediately weren't able to escape. A great war occurred between two emperors. Yun Feiyang added. Lin Feng was captivated. A war between two emperors? How terrifying. That world belongs to a great emperor who was unprecedentedly strong. His slaves are of the Tianqi layer and many Zun cultivators obey him. Amongst those Zun cultivators, there are 4 who are the strongest and reside in 4 different places. The territories surrounding the palaces are under their control. Jun Emoshi and I entered one of those 4 palaces. These treasures must have belonged to one of the 4 Zun cultivators. For strongest Zun cultivators, Lin Feng looked captivated. No wonder those precious items were so powerful. That explained everything. Those treasures belonged to an extremely strong Zun cultivator. The last words of the ancestors are carved in the palace. The emperor to whom that world belongs had offended a demonic emperor. The latter chased the former to kill him. The emperor had no choice, no way to escape, so he entered a territory without doors to run away and even prepared his coffin. He knew that everybody would die. The Zun cultivators also knew, so they carved their last words in stone before dying. Yun Feiyang explained. How terrifying. The great emperor was a monster cultivator. He could be counted as one of the strongest cultivators in the world. But surprisingly, he was no match for this other supreme existence. He decided to die in a glorious place to rest in peace and protect his honor. That demonic emperor must have been terrifyingly strong, whispered Lin Feng. What an incredible event. Lin Feng could almost imagine the scene. The demonic emperor chasing those cultivators in that world. I wonder how strong the demonic cultivator was, being able to chase the great emperor and forcing him to prepare his own grave, said Yun Feiyang while smiling wryly and shaking his head. Jun Emoshi and Yun Feiyang were just as surprised. Okay, where is the Zun cultivator's coffin? Asked Lin Feng. Yun Feiyang shook his head. Before dying, the Zun cultivators used a magic skill to make their coffins. Nobody knows where they are. It won't be easy at all to find them, otherwise, those who had come before us would have found them already. But, said Yun Fei Yang before continuing, according to the Zun cultivator's last words, he was one of the 4 strongest Zun cultivators. The 3 other Zun cultivators' underground palaces are also in that world, situated at 3 other cardinal points. Those 4 palaces are the best places in this world to find treasures. What you mean is, Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling with sharp lights. For Zun cultivators in 4 different locations, this palace was one of them. They found 3 incredible treasures here. If we could find the other 3, we could find other great items and learn more about those Zun cultivators, said Jun and Mo Shi. Lin Feng looked captivated. Indeed, if they could find the 3 other palaces, even if they didn't find the great emperor's grave, their trip would be an overwhelming success. Of course, if they could find the emperor's grave, that would be even better. Lin Feng was very curious to know more about their story, the emperor's coffin and the demonic emperor. Lin Feng and the others didn't know. At that very moment, the second underground palace had already been found by others. A great battle took place and many people had already died. The one who found the Zun cultivator's grave had fought Lin Feng before. Besides, they had also obtained a precious item. They could kill people without spilling blood. Those who saw the item wanted it, but nobody managed to steal it from them. Chapter 793. The evil gourd, a gloomy and deadly chi, was floating in the air around the ruins. Many people surrounded the ruins and stared at the person above them. His face resembled jade. He looked like an extraordinary fighter. However, coupled with those shiny eyes, one could see a gloomy and ice-cold smile on his face. He looked back at the crowd, exerting that gloomy and scary chi. What scared everyone the most was the item he held in his hands. It was a gourd. A gloomy chi which contained deadly energy was burning above the gourd. So many had already died because of that gourd. Duan Wuya, we're lucky to have you with us at East Sea Dragon Palace. Did you find more than one treasure? Apart from the gourd, you must have found other treasures which you could share with us. We can help you fight off the rest of them. We're in the mysterious world where you can only rely on yourself. What I find is mine. If you want my items, come and take them. If you are strong enough, I don't mind giving you them, said Duan Wuya while smiling in an indifferent way. But his voice sounded extremely cold, which made it obvious that he didn't have good intentions. Duan Wuya was extremely strong and had obtained, on top of that, a terrifying gourd. Almost nobody came close to him anymore. So, do you want my items or not? If not, I will take my leave, said Duan Wuya, still smiling. Could they let Duan Wuya leave just like that and do nothing? Die, someone said at that moment. They suddenly appeared behind Duan Wuya to strike him in the back. Duan Wuya glanced at the person behind him without much care. A gloomy chi surrounded his body and enveloped him. A gloomy cloud appeared and floated in the wind. The attacker punched the cloud and very quickly, the cloud surrounded his body as a horrible shriek sounded in the air. That person's body was crushed and devoured. There wasn't a single drop of blood spilt. How brutal, thought the crowd. Duan Wuya was extremely brutal. What a way to kill someone. If you want to die, I will help you, said Duan Wuya to the rest of the crowd. He put his fingers on the gourd and a terrifying gray cloud appeared and floated towards some people. Soon as it touched them, they died. How scary, thought the crowd again. Anyone else want to try? Duan Wuya grew tired of this. Those who remained were silent and were stiff from fear. So if nobody else wants the treasure, then I'm off, said Duan Wuya, smiling this time. He disappeared in a flash. I found a Zun cultivator's underground palace and obtained very valuable items where the dead chi was thickest. The 3 other underground palaces must also be surrounded by this gloomy chi, thought Duan Wuya. When it came to sensing gloomy chi and dead chi, his senses were very developed, otherwise, he wouldn't have discovered the place where one of the Zun cultivator's rotting body was buried. After great catastrophes, some empires became negligible for hundreds of years. In the cultivation world, many things are mysterious and unexplainable. Sometimes empires lack geniuses, sometimes they are filled with truly amazing, all-conquering geniuses. Fate is determined by a myriad of factors. Indeed, maybe the great emperor will come back to life, said Huang Fulong while giggling foolishly. Lin Feng sounded reluctant. I hope that it's true. Let's go and see the other 2 places. The 4 of them rose up in the sky. They had already found 2 of 4 underground palaces, so the 2 remaining palaces had to be in opposite locations. The Zune cultivator's stories quickly spread around, and almost all of those who had come the mysterious world knew about them. Even though some didn't know about those stories beforehand, they still found other palaces with crystals that helped their cultivation and deepen their knowledge about intent. Some of them found crystals that taught them things about abstruse energies, but they hid their findings from everyone else. Chapter 794. Boundless Blood Pool. A wave of people flew to the east. At that moment, Yu Tianji was in the middle of a golden desert. There were round and twinkling stars in his hands which guided him along. Yu Tianji had an enigmatic power. His inner strength could work in concert with the stars, enabling him to practice some rare skills, among which he could imitate other people's skills and abilities, which was why others found him so enigmatic and omniscient. However, he was the only one who understood that only genuine star chi could enable him to become omniscient. In the dark, he still had to rely on the stars to guide him. He was far from being able to do that on his own. In that vast and boundless desert, the ground was burnt by sunlight. A hot energy seemed to bless this land. There were no ruins and no corpses. It didn't seem like there could be anything interesting there. However, Yu Tianji had come and took the possibility very seriously. He was using the power of the stars to sense his surroundings. There had to be something in that area. At that moment, a gray silhouette appeared. That person looked skinny and was surrounded by a cold chi. Is it him? Thought Yu Tianji, the one who had found the treasures in the ruins before him. It seemed like that person had also sensed someone else was in that desert. He turned his head. His smile only held bad intentions. That smile made Yu Tianji shiver. It looked warm yet piercing to the bones. He is very dangerous. I need to be careful, thought Yu Tianji. He conjured some star energy flow around him. It seemed like those starlights could let him to see through that person who smiled and said, "You also came here to find treasure?" "That's right," said Yu Tianji while nodding and moving on. "Not bad, you sensed it as well. I think there are some incredible treasures underground. You should try and make them appear," he said while moving forwards as well. Yu Tianji smiled coldly. That person was asking him to find the treasures, but if he really found something he would be killed and robbed. "You should try to." Yu Tianji tried to look detached. He continued to make star energy revolve around him. He was confident that if he found a treasure, that other guy wouldn't be able to take it away from him. 2 morons. Surprisingly, you two think that you can find the treasures buried in the desert, someone else said mockingly while flying above them. Yu Tianji ignored them, but Duan Wuya raised his head and looked at them with his piercing smile, making them feel cold. The desert was dry, desolate, and there were no clouds in the sky. Many people skipped past them because of the dreariness. A majority didn't believe there could be anything interesting in the desert. They believed the palaces could only be found where a thick qi and many corpses resided. They focused on searching visible and large palaces. Lin Feng and the other 4 continued eastwards. At that moment, they also arrived in the middle of a desert. "How hot? Did we go in the wrong direction? It's surprising that we ended up in a desert," whispered Yun Fei Yang. The temperature in the desert was higher than the other places they searched. "I like it when things are beyond our expectations," said Lin Feng in an indifferent way. "Why do I feel so excited?" asked Huang Fulong. They were looking at Huang Fulong in a strange way. "Excited? He's in the desert and surprisingly he's feeling excited? Why do you feel that way? Can you sense or feel something?" Lin Feng took Huang Fulong seriously. "Let's go down," said Huang Fulong, whose eyes looked increasingly shinier. The others looked at Huang Fulong land on the ground. They glanced at each other with surprise. Had he really sensed something? "So," said Lin Feng. "I can sense it more and more. It's so intense. My blood is boiling," said Huang Fulong, whose eyes were twinkling in a strange way. He was having a very strange reaction in the middle of the desert, as if Mother Earth had called out to him. His heart was pounding and an intense blood qi was emerging out of his body. The other kept staring at each other. They would have never thought that Huang Fulong would sense something. Was the Zune cultivator's underground palace really in that desert? Their silhouettes shifted as they followed Huang Fulong. After a while, Huang Fulong finally stopped. At that moment it seemed like his blood was going to explode. His face was completely red as an intense blood strength flowed through his veins. "The feeling is immense, it must be here," said Huang Fulong while suddenly jumping up in the air. He cannonballed at the ground like a rocket. A loud explosion sounded as sand splashed up in the air. Huang Fulong looked like a madman. His entire body was entirely buried in the ground. "Arr!" A loud roar spread in the air. It was Huang Fulong's voice. The ground started shaking. Lin Feng and the others could only hear cracking and rumbling sounds. It seemed like something was being broken. Boom! The sand of the desert started rolling in waves towards the sky. The entire atmosphere was filled with sand. After that, a gigantic crater appeared where Huang Fulong landed. Some light emitted by blood qi dashed to the skies. Blood qi, an extremely powerful one. Lin Feng and the others arrived near the crater and looked inside. There was a pool of blood from which a monstrous strength was soaring. He really found it. Lin Feng was astonished. Huang Fulong was right. He had really found it. That blood energy was incredibly powerful. Zun cultivators could condense blood qi and turn it into an extremely powerful strength, capable of passing from generation to generation. The Zun cultivators under the Great Emperor were monstrously strong, especially those four. They could use their blood energy and turn it into a blood pool. However, Zun cultivators rarely did that. What was the point in doing that after dying? For whatever reason, that Zun cultivator did it. The blood was extremely hot and seemed to be boiling. Lin Feng and the others understood why it was so hot in the desert. That blood energy had a strong influence on the ecosystem. The four of them looked at each other and seemed to have the same thought. Without saying anything, their silhouettes dashed as they immediately appeared above the blood pool, protecting it. Since Huang Fulong's blood was compatible with the blood, he could take control of it. With such an incredible energy emerging out from it, others were bound to come. It wasn't long before someone came by. It was Yu Tianji. They didn't expect him to come along first. Yu Tianji was also surprised. Was he dreaming? Lin Feng and his friends were the ones to discover the treasure again. "What's going on?" asked Yu Tianji, looking at the blood pool. "Huang Fulong found it. He's investigating the blood energy," said Lin Feng. Yu Tianji, protect Huang Fulong. Yu Tianji's eyes were twinkling. Immediately, he nodded and said, "All right." Yu Tianji jumped forwards and joined Lin Feng and the others. He stared at Huang Fulong. "Tianxian scored again. Were they going to rise? I hope that Tianqi will be victorious this time," said Yu Tianji while looking up at the sky, as if he was trying to see through the stars. Chapter 795. Who dares attack? A sandstorm suddenly appeared in the desert containing some blood qi. Even those who were far away could see it and were intrigued. What a monstrous attack! Great, thought Lin Feng, speechless. Huang Fulong wasn't very smart. He found the treasure but made a big scene of unveiling it, alerting everyone in the surroundings. Lin Feng raised his head to the sky and saw many people coming towards them. There was someone around whom a gloomy qi floated. He was wearing a gallant robe. He was shocked to see Lin Feng when he arrived. Lin Feng was stupefied as well. Lin Feng suddenly looked furious and released some deadly qi which rolled in waves. "What a coincidence! I wouldn't have thought that after turning into a demon, you would recover back to normal. It's no wonder I always considered you to be an incredible cultivator," Duan Wuya said to Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. That was the same smile he always wore, warm and friendly. The only thing that had changed from before was his cold and gloomy qi. "What a coincidence indeed," said Lin Feng while releasing deadly energy. His sword qi was whistling louder and louder. Lin Feng wanted to kill Duan Wuya the most. Duan Wuya's plot had been way too cruel. "Lin Feng, don't hate me like that. Without me, you would have never become what you are now. I saw you rise progressively. Even though many died, at least you've become strong. I also got what I wanted. We can continue to work together to conquer the Gan region," said Duan Wuya, ignoring Lin Feng's deadly energy. His smile was absolutely radiant. "I only have one thought when it comes to you," said Lin Feng while slowly walking forwards and releasing sword qi which dashed to the skies. "Die." His sword qi was rolling in waves in the atmosphere. Lin Feng, be careful. Just like you, he obtained some items belonging to one of the 4 greatest Zun cultivators of the mysterious world, said Yu Tianji to Lin Feng as a warning. He didn't realize that Lin Feng would hate that guy so much. You are monstrously powerful now. Seeing you with this strength is definitely surprising, whispered Duan Wuya when he sensed the sword qi. A terrifying gloomy sword qi emerged and the gloomy gourd appeared in his hand. Duan Wuya punched the air and a terrifying gloomy qi emerged out of the gourd which dashed out towards Lin Feng. The sword qi was being corroded by it. Lin Feng was surprised by its strength. What a corrosive qi! Duan Wuya had obtained one of the Zun cultivator's treasures as well. His blood sword appeared and its strength dashed to the skies. Sword qi started floating around the atmosphere. In a flash, a shield of sword qi appeared in front of Lin Feng and collided with the gloomy qi. Rumbling sounds could be heard all around. The sword qi was corroded once again. I'm coming. 2 golden lights appeared in the air. 2 resplendent golden wings appeared on Junemo Shi. His entire body broke through the gloomy qi. His silhouette flickered and he threw himself at Duan Wuya's head. You also have a precious treasure. Duan Wuya quickly realized. The golden lights could destroy the gloomy qi. But Duan Wuya's gloomy qi continued to head towards Lin Feng and the others. Bang! The ancient bell resonated. A gigantic bell shot out at Duan Wuya. In a flash, Duan Wuya's body became stiff and his gloomy qi was restricted. Die! A million swords were roaring furiously at Duan Wuya. It seemed like the terrifying sword lights were going to swallow Duan Wuya in one gulp. Duan Wuya's heart was pounding. Lin Feng's sword attack was terrifying. Without his gourd he would die in a flash. Go! He put his hand on his gourd and more gloomy qi appeared from a hole, enveloping the sword qi and swallowing it. Duan Wuya saw that Lin Feng was still attacking, so he made his gourd spit out even more gloomy qi. Lin Feng's sword was dancing around in the air. 9 heavy shields made of swords appeared and blocked the gloomy qi. Lin Feng will meet again. Lin Feng only saw Duan Wuya sitting on his gigantic gourd, flying as fast as he could. A golden light flickered. Junemo Shi came back next to Lin Feng. He was also staring at Duan Wuya in the distance when he said, "That gourd is terrifying. It seems even more powerful than my golden robe. It's difficult to attack him and protect yourself from him. You found 2 treasures in the first palace, and he only found 1. Its power is unprecedented, so that must be why," said Yu Tianji, who didn't know that Lin Feng and the others had actually found 3 treasures. Lin Feng and the others were relieved. The Zun cultivator's treasures were monstrously powerful. They could enable a cultivator to conquer the Gan region with ease. He is as insidious as he was in the past, thought Lin Feng, whose facial expression looked as cold as before. Duan Wuya ran away after seeing that the circumstances were not favorable for him. He was as treacherous and insidious as before. Several other strong cultivators arrived. They looked extremely greedy each time they saw the blood pool. There had to be some precious treasures inside that pool. The strength contained in that blood was terrifying. If I manage to get inside, I'll find some amazing treasures, many of them thought. Even if the blood from the pool wasn't compatible with their own, they would still become stronger. They wanted to acquire the strength of that blood pool. Those who thought that there couldn't be anything in the desert were coming back as well. Lin Feng looked at the blood pool. Huang Fulong was already inside it, sensing the blood. It reminded Lin Feng of the past, when he absorbed the strength of the purple snake's blood. However, the blood pool in front of his eyes now was much more powerful than that of the purple snakes. Back then the blood pool was in a cave and had been there for 1,000 years. So, it became less powerful. However, it seems like this one had been sealed by the Zun cultivator, which was seemingly broken by Huang Fulong. On top of that, the Zun cultivator's strength was probably matchless, so the strength of the pool hadn't evaporated, thought Lin Feng. If back then he had been as strong as he was now, he wouldn't have needed to rely on his snake spirit to swallow it. Instead, he could swallow it directly and reap the benefits more directly. Lin Feng also wanted to bathe in that blood pool. Of course, that was a bit complicated because he couldn't bother Huang Fulong. That would be like attacking his spirit. More and more strong cultivators were gathering. They all looked greedier than the next. They didn't attack when their numbers were few. especially because Jun Moshi and Yun Fei Yang's treasures were extremely powerful. Besides, Lin Feng had just proved how strong he was. However, they could win with sheer numbers. Someone looking at the crowd said, "Everybody, that blood pool contains a monstrous strength. If we manage to bathe in it, we'll become a lot stronger. We should attack together to kill those people so we can share the pool." CRRR. That person had barely finished talking before a gigantic blood-red light shot him down. Lin Feng was already furious because Duan Wuya had escaped. He had no patience left, so he released his terrifying blood sword and attacked with the speed of lightning. That person's pupils shrank. He released some fist attacks. But it only delayed the inevitable. Lin Feng's sword was extremely powerful and had pierced him. A few seconds ago he was dreaming of bathing in the blood pool and now he was dead. "If anyone dares attack, I'll kill them," shouted Lin Feng furiously. Chapter 796. Monstrous Huang Fulong. As expected, Lin Feng could kill someone in a flash with his sword. That somehow made people wake up from their dreams. What a terrifying sword. They were trying to think if they would have been able to resist Lin Feng's attack a moment before. Many realized that they couldn't escape such an attack. That sword contained level 6 sword intent and was as fast as thunder. If their own intent wasn't at least level 4 or 5, or if they didn't have incredible magical powers, they wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack. Even though they were all real geniuses, not all of them had the strength of level 4 or 5 intent, let alone 6. Lin Feng had already surpassed them by far. His strength was simply terrifying. Even though they were surprised and scared of Lin Feng, it was difficult for them to give up on the treasure in front of them. It seemed like the blood of the pool was boiling. Blood chi dashed to the skies, but Lin Feng and the others released a majestic chi in every direction to curb any reckless thoughts. Half a day passed like that. The crowd continued to grow. Some people weren't able to control themselves and attacked. Some had gathered in large groups of 10 to 20 people, but in 3 seconds, they had been slaughtered by Lin Feng. His blood sword was extremely powerful. One attack could kill 10 people. He could even swallow their blood and purified his. Jun Moshi's golden lights would streak through the sky and blood would splash everywhere. Yun Fei Yang's ancient bell could oppress people in his surroundings and then destroy them. Yu Tianji's 7 stars were also terrifying and seemed indestructible. There was also that girl who looked febrile. But her agility techniques were incredible. Coupled with her golden gloves, she could take lives with her punches. Those 5 were extremely powerful. Nobody left dared to attack anymore, especially after realizing that amongst those 5, 3 had precious weapons in their possession. "He's really enjoying the blood pool," said Yun Fei Yang, looking down at the blood pool. The fact that Huang Fulong already spent so much time bathing in it proved that how beneficial it was to him. Things quickly became dark. The blood energy in the atmosphere was becoming more intense. It still seemed to be boiling, but in an even scarier way, gigantic waves rolled in the pool. "Arr!" A loud shout resounded along with rumbling sounds. Everybody looked at the blood pool and saw a silhouette dashing to the skies. He was surrounded by golden lights and seemed to be filled with a boundless strength. His golden hair seemed to reflect the sun. That bright energy looked dazzling. What astonished people the most was that, at that moment, a real dragon was curled up on him. It was singing the chant of the dragons. He had a gigantic golden axe in his hands with a dragon carving on it. It looked alive as if a real dragon resided in it. That dragon axe seemed like it could pierce through to the vault of heaven. "Is that Huang Fulong?" asked Lin Feng while smiling. Huang Fulong looked like a dragon. His strength and power seemed matchless. He looked like a peerless warlord able to defeat the deities with his dragon axe. One of my ancestors died here," said Huang Fulong, leaving Lin Feng speechless. Was that Zun cultivator really one of Huang Fulong's ancestors? Lin Feng, I was right. No wonder my feelings were so intense. The one who died here had the same blood spirit as me. It has to be one of my ancestors. Huang Fulong was giggling. That would explain why Huang Fulong suddenly felt so strange. The Zun cultivator's blood turned into a blood spirit, and he then sealed it underground in the desert. Ordinary people couldn't find the pool because they didn't have the same blood spirit. Not only did his spirit become stronger, he acquired that axe. Don't you know anything about your ancestors? Joked Lin Feng. Huang Fulong had achieved so much and was so strong. Could it be that he knew nothing about his family history? No, I have no idea. Since childhood, my only dream has always been to marry a beautiful woman. The pure woman of Tianqi. I've become less ambitious recently, it seems. Huang Fulong was scratching his head. Even though he talked about it freely, Lin Feng had the feeling that Huang Fulong was bitter about it still. Your wife will definitely be more outstanding than Tianqi Shui, smiled Lin Feng. Huang Fulong nodded and giggled. I think so too. In the middle of the crowd, a white silhouette raised their head and seemingly looked like an all-conquering warlord in the sky. That white silhouette was precisely Tianqi Shui. The expression in her eyes looked complex. She used to despise Lin Feng and Huang Fulong. Her behavior was particularly detestable when Huang Fulong was courting her. She thought that Huang Fulong wasn't good enough for her. She never thought that Lin Feng, Huang Fulong and the others would quickly obtain the same status as Yu Tianji. Although she was the holy woman of Tianqi, she was the one looking up at them. Her heart was filled with remorse and bitterness. Maybe that moronic Huang Fulong would become a warlord and conquer the world with his dragon axe. Lin Feng, the energy from that blood pool is extremely thick and rich. I wasn't able to finish absorbing it. You should get inside and absorb some as well, said Huang Fulong smiling. Lin Feng became excited. Indeed, the pool created by the Zun cultivator was too powerful for Huang Fulong. It was no surprise that he was unable to absorb it entirely with his cultivation level. Lin Feng looked at the others when Huang Fulong said, "Don't worry, go in first and the others will later have the opportunity to absorb the energy until the pool dries." Okay, said Lin Feng, nodding. Everyone else nodded, so Lin Feng jumped in. A scorching hot qi assaulted his body. Lin Feng felt like he was bathing in a sea of needles. The dragon chant started resonating from the pool. Everybody became confused. What was going on? Why was the chant of the dragon with Lin Feng as well? He also has a dragon spirit. Huang Fulong realized with a bright smile. He then glanced at the crowd with his axe on his shoulders and shouted furiously, "What are you all looking at? You all should piss off quickly." The crowd stared at Huang Fulong. That bastard. After letting Lin Feng get in, he told them to piss off. Daddy is majestic and all-conquering, said Huang Fulong while carrying the dragon axe on his shoulder and slowly walking forwards. He touched the tip of his axe with his other hand and said coldly, "Everybody retreat at least 5 kilometers, otherwise I won't act polite anymore." Many people looked gloom and remained silent. One of them said, "Your Excellency, don't be cruel. We're not trying to steal anything, can we not watch?" Huang Fulong took a deep breath and lifted the axe from his shoulder. "If you didn't intend to steal anything, why would you stay here and waste your time watching? If my friends weren't extremely strong, you would have attacked me earlier. Since it's that way, I won't be magnanimous anymore. I will start with you. Let's see how powerful this dragon axe is," said Huang Fulong. Crackling sound spread out of his forearm as his axe streaked through the sky, leaving a trail behind him. His dragon chant made people's heart throb. The crowd only saw a terrifying light. The atmosphere was filled with a golden light which shot out at the crowd. A real dragon was chanting with fury in that golden light. The axe crashed into that person, reducing them to ashes. They didn't even have time to shout. "You're still here," said Huang Fulong to the rest of the crowd, brandishing his axe. He looked extremely brutal. Chapter 797. Group fight. The crowd's facial expressions were hideous. Huang Fulong bathed in the blood pool and obtained that dragon axe. His attack made the entire world tremble. Nobody could resist him anymore. He had a real dragon which could crush people into smoke. Let's go. Someone had a bad feeling. Almost everybody gave up. Trying to steal the treasure was hopeless. Maybe they could find the 4th palace before Lin Feng's group. Very quickly, silhouettes started flickering away. Lin Feng's group was too strong. Even acting together was helpless. Huang Fulong laughed proudly. He could easily kill geniuses with his axe. Not bad. Some geniuses from Tianqi hadn't left, namely Tianqi Shui. Huang Fulong glanced at her, but unlike before, he looked at her in a detached way. He held no signs of love or passion in his eyes anymore. Maybe Lin Feng was right, Tianqi Shui wasn't worth his time. She was arrogant and despised him. His feelings had always been unilateral. Trying to win her heart was useless, so he held no feelings for her anymore. Tianqi Shui's feelings were further mixed when she saw this. It seems like you don't need me anymore. I'm off, said Yu Tianji indifferently. He jumped forwards, his silhouette flickered and left. 3 palaces had been found now, so he could use his power of the stars to find the 4th palace. He wanted to find some treasure himself as well. Even though he lost against Lin Feng and handed the title of leader to Lin Feng, he wouldn't admit defeat that easily. He wanted to defeat Lin Feng next time and become the leader again. Tianxian started to rise, but Tianji Peak hadn't collapsed yet. They were still the best of the 7 snowy peaks. Bathing in that pool can strengthen your muscles and blood vessels. Hey, said Huang Fulong to Yu Tianji. Yu Tianji was a proud man. I don't need stronger muscles and blood vessels, said Yu Tianji indifferently before disappearing in the horizon. Lin Feng was still bathing in the pool when a few silhouettes approached from the distance. One of them was wearing a gray robe, Duan Wuya. There were others with him. One of them was Di Ling from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Another was a domineering-looking young man wearing a purple robe. He had an extremely high status within the East Dragon Sea Palace. He was Ao Jiao, the son of one of the 4 Dragon Kings. He was the leader of the group representing the East Sea Dragon Palace in the mysterious world. Apart from Di Ling and Ao Jiao, there were 2 others. One of them was Duan Wuye's brother, the Crown Prince of Shuiyu, Duan Wu Dao. Next to Duan Wu Dao was someone wearing a crown. They looked like a king. He was a member of the Jade Heaven Imperial family, Huang Feng. Duan Wu Dao became a member of the Jade Heaven Imperial clan, so they helped him become stronger. Even though Duan Wu Dao wasn't as strong as other members from the clan, the strong cultivators of the Jade Heaven Imperial clan decided to make him stay with Huang Feng and become an assistant. Are you sure about what you said earlier? Huang Feng asked Duan Wuya. He looked like a domineering member of a monarchy, as if he was the king of the world. If I were trying to fool you, would I fool my brother as well? Asked Duan Wuya while smiling indifferently. Duan Wu Dao remained silent. Brother? Was he joking? He had already fooled him too many times to count. Huang Feng declined to comment. If what Duan Wuya was right, he would definitely give it a try. Huang Feng hadn't found any palaces yet. All 4 palaces contained Zun cultivators' graves and held incredible treasures. If he could obtain those treasures, he would become even stronger. Look, we arrived, said Duan Wuya, pointing to the distance. Huang Feng and the others raised their heads and looked off to the distance. As expected, sand was floating around in the sky and the blood qi was quite thick. Duan Wuya hadn't fooled them. Let's go. The 5 of them accelerated but were surprised to find almost nobody there. There were only 4 people protecting the deep blood pool in the middle of the desert. The atmosphere was filled with an incredible blood qi. A dragon axe, an ancient bell and a golden robe. Their pupils shrank looking at their treasures. Now they really believed Duan Wuya. Their eyes started twinkling with excitement after seeing those items, and the energies released by them. I want the golden robe, said Huang Feng, referring to Jun Emoshi's robe. That golden robe perfectly matched his social status. I want the axe, said Ao Jiao, staring at Huang Fulong's dragon axe. He immediately fell in love with that axe. Deities probably created that axe just for him. Everybody, all of them are extremely strong. Their strength coupled with those precious weapons are extremely dangerous. I know that all of you are extremely strong, but you have to be careful. I am too weak to join the battle, so you all can have the weapons you like, said Duan Wuya, smiling. His friends nodded. They were not in the mood to listen to Duan Wuya. All they wanted were those precious weapons. Duan Wu Dao looked deep into Duan Wuya's eyes for his intentions. But Duan Wuya retreated with incredible speeds. He wanted nothing to do with the coming battle. Lin Feng finished bathing in the pool a while ago. He saw the group approaching and recognized Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling, but not the other 2. One of them was wearing a purple robe and looked extraordinary, while the other one looked like a member of a monarchy. Those were probably the leaders from the Jade Heaven and East Sea Dragon Palace groups. He really has no moral values, thought Lin Feng, watching Duan Wuya leave. Lin Feng became expressionless. Duan Wuya was too sly. He brought those people to fight for him. Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao looked over at Lin Feng and released a strong battle energy. Back at the great competition, Lin Feng had defeated both of them. They still remembered and wanted to get their revenge. "Give us your items," said Huang Feng indifferently, glancing at Lin Feng and his friends, leaving no room for arguing. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Jade Heaven Imperial Clan and East Sea Dragon Palace." Back during the Shuiyu battle, Jade Heaven and East Sea Dragon Palace acted to massacre Lin Feng's loved ones. Lin Feng would never forgive them. Lin Feng had his 4 friends with him: Jun Emoshi, Yun Fei Yang, Huang Fulong, and Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu was bathing in the blood pool now, so she couldn't fight. It was 4-on-4, so Lin Feng wasn't scared. Apart from him, Jun Emoshi and the others held incredible items. "If you want them, come and take them from us," said Lin Feng emotionlessly. "I want that robe," Huang Feng said again while jumping forwards. He looked absolutely majestic, throwing himself at Jun Emoshi. "The axe is mine," said Ao Jiao, looking brutal. He also threw himself at Huang Fulong. Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao looked at Lin Feng with a burning battle energy. "He's mine," said Di Ling, throwing himself at Lin Feng. "Humph!" groaned Duan Wu Dao, throwing himself at Lin Feng as well. "Kill them if you can," said Lin Feng coldly. He jumped forwards as well. Sword Chi dashed to the skies. His level 6 sword intent invaded the atmosphere. Level 6 intent. Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling were astonished. They wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would already be so strong. It seemed like the battle wasn't going to be as easy as they thought. "Do I need to fight?" said Yun Fei Yang. Nobody wanted to fight him. "No need, you should wait on the sideline for an opportunity to kill them," said Lin Feng indifferently. Surrounded by an infinite amount of sword chi, Lin Feng wanted to fight Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao alone. Chapter 798. Great Battle. A large battle was starting. The entire atmosphere was filled with rumbling and whistling energies. Apart from Yun Fei Yang, all 7 people were fighting with incredible strengths. Huang Feng's chi was very powerful. He looked like a brutal king, majestic and domineering with great skills and abilities. Jun Emoshi's chi was righteous. Even though his skills and abilities weren't as skilled as his opponents, they still didn't dare to attack him directly. They both looked majestic and proud. Ao Jiao and Huang Fulong's punches could disintegrate boulders. One was the son of a king, wearing that famous golden purple robe, possessing a flood dragon blood spirit skills to control dragons. He was so strong that he could destroy mountains and oceans. Nobody could resist his power. However, Huang Fulong didn't fear him. He also had a dragon spirit and bathed in the blood pool. His chi was vigorous and powerful. His dragon axe seemed capable of shaking the entire universe. Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao were still fighting against Lin Feng together. Firmament intent invaded the entire atmosphere and oppressed Lin Feng to the extent that his sword chi broke. The scariest part was Duan Wu Dao was also releasing some terrifying sealing intent. Lin Feng had no choice but to use his full power. Those two coupled with each other were strong Lin Feng, to the extent that his level 6 sword intent couldn't hold up. "It seems like you didn't waste your time in the last 3 months," Lin Feng said in a cold and detached way. After getting hit by one of their attacks, he was propelled backwards. Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao, one had joined the East Sea Dragon Palace and the other one the Jade Heaven Imperial Clan. They had access to a world-class education and could progress with incredible speeds in terms of cultivation. They were much stronger than they were at the great competition. Their intent had leveled up and they had learnt and improved their skills. "Neither have you," said Di Ling coldly. He then shouted furiously, "Firmament!" More whistling sounds spread in the air as the pressure became immense, oppressing Lin Feng. It seemed like the entire sky was falling onto him and would crush him. Lin Feng raised his head and absorbed sunlight into his body. In a flash, a bright fire ignited all around him. Demon strength possessed him as lights were flashing all around him. Lin Feng had also bathed in the blood pool. His muscles and blood vessels were much stronger than before. Lin Feng raised his hands and started punching the oppressive energy in the sky with a strength capable of shifting the clouds. "Brutal king punches," shouted Duan Wu Dao furiously. It seemed like 1,000,000 kilos were falling down onto Lin Feng now. At the same time, Duan Wu Dao shook his other hand and shot out seal energy towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng became motionless. The terrifying heaven pressure coupled with the sealed door's intent seemed like heaven and earth were turning upside down. Piss off. Lin Feng joined his hands again and fire began burning in his muscles and blood vessels. Duan Wudao's king punches were swiftly destroyed, causing him to groan. A terrifying majestic qi started flowing in the veins of his forearms. 9 imperial bursts. Duan Wudao started punching Lin Feng again. Crackling sounds continued spreading in the air, again oppressing Lin Feng's forearms this time. Lin Feng hadn't seen this technique before. 9 marks appeared on his forearms which seemed like they were going to burst. After the 7th mark finished appearing clearly, it felt like his bones going to shatter. Lin Feng circulated demon strength to flow in his forearms as crackling sounds spread in the air. Lin Feng's arm was safe now, it seemed. Lin Feng's facial expression looked ice-cold as he used his other hand to carry out an attack. A gigantic demon hand appeared above Duan Wudao and attacked. It seemed like Duan Wudao was going to be crushed like an insect. Duan Wudao didn't panic. He moved his arm back as an imperial qi vibrated in the air above him. Duan Wudao used both of his hands to assault Lin Feng's black hand. However, what seemed like a boundless sword light surprised him with incredible speeds. Seal! Boom boom boom. Duan Wudao's pupils were opened wide. His sealed doors appeared again to seal Lin Feng's sword energies. At the same time, a sealed door shot out at Lin Feng. Haha, are you serious? Laughed Lin Feng. He released level 6 sword intent and assaulted the sealed door directed at him again and again. He also continued to punch the atmosphere. Lin Feng was attacking so quickly that afterimages of punches could be seen. Gotcha! Gotcha! The sealed door disintegrated and Lin Feng condensed his sword qi. His entire body started burning and concentrating as well. How scary, thought Di Ling and Duan Wudao when they sensed the power of that sword. Their hearts were pounding. At that moment the vault heaven seemed like it was going to crash onto Lin Feng's head. Di Ling was using his firmament intent mercilessly. Die! Shouted Di Ling furiously. The pressure was so intense that it seemed like the earth and sky were turning upside down. Piss off! Roared Lin Feng furiously. Waves of deadly qi rolled in the atmosphere at Di Ling, who then roared back. Firmament intent continued to bombard assault Lin Feng. Slash! Sword qi streaked across the sky. Then Lin Feng had seemingly disappeared. His all-conquering sword cut through the sealed doors, one after the other, leaving them disintegrate. Die! Lin Feng's voice sounded furiously. He wanted to kill Duan Wudao with this strike. His sword seemed indestructible and unstoppable. The sealed doors were all destroyed. Boom boom boom. Chapter 799. Healing pill. Duan Wudao's injuries were the most serious. His sealed door spirit was cut in half by Lin Feng. Lin Feng's facial expression looked ice-cold now. He used the 9 winds technique and threw his clones at Duan Wudao. Di Ling looked at Duan Wudao but didn't help him. He was a member of the East Sea Dragon Palace and Duan Wudao joined Jade Heaven. The only thing they had in common was Lin Feng. At other times, Duan Wudao and Di Ling were enemies. A terrifying firmament intent invaded the atmosphere. Di Ling condensed as much intent as he could. If Lin Feng attacked Duan Wudao, then Di Ling could also use his strongest attack against Lin Feng. How great would it be if Lin Feng and Duan Wudao would die together? Don't worry, just focus, shouted Yun Fei Yang. Di Ling was too sly. Yun Fei Yang wouldn't allow him to use Duan Wudao as bait. The ancient bell resonated and its sound waves rolled towards Di Ling. The gigantic bell was moving with incredible speed. Again Di Ling felt paralyzed. Now I'm your opponent, said Yun Fei Yang while running towards Di Ling. His clothes were fluttering in the wind. He borrowed the force of the earth and fused it with the ancient bell, making it resonate even louder. Di Ling thought the earth and sky were collapsing. He wanted to go attack Lin Feng from behind but now he couldn't. He became strong as well, thought Di Ling, pulling a long face. Back then, Yun Fei Yang wasn't that weak, ending in the 10 top best cultivators of the great competition. But he was still far from matching Di Ling's strength. Yun Fei Yang became stronger, coupled with the power of the ancient bell. He could hold his own against Di Ling, even though he received instructions from the outstanding teachers at the East Sea Dragon Palace. Amongst the 10 top cultivators of the great competition, everyone had seemingly made significant progress. Duan Wu Dao was now being assaulted by the 9 clones. He couldn't see where the actual Lin Feng was. He already used all his skills. Now he could only rely on his own physical strength to resist Lin Feng. Seal! Shouted Duan Wu Dao furiously, releasing terrifying sealed door intent, hoping to seal Lin Feng's clones. Boom boom kacha! The clones' hands moved, attacking the sealed door intent and cracking it. At the same time, a terrifying sword qi launched at Duan Wu Dao. Arr! Duan Wu Dao roared loudly. An infinite amount of imperial qi surrounded him. The earth and sky shook as if a million beasts were rampaging. Could the emblematic beast of Jade Heaven be the Qilin? Thought Lin Feng. Fearlessly, Lin Feng's sword intent turned into a myriad of terrifying rays of light, all darting towards Duan Wu Dao and piercing through the imperial qi and lacerating the Kylans. Boom boom boom. Lin Feng punched the atmosphere in Duan Wu Dao's direction, making him groan furiously. Blood was splashing everywhere. If Lin Feng's punches reached him, he would die. Go back. In a flash, some punches crossed the atmosphere towards Lin Feng. The Kylans were roaring furiously. They wanted to devour Lin Feng. Those punches were terrifying and filled with deadly energies. Lin Feng didn't have time to carry out another attack, so he moved like the wind, disappearing from where he was. Huang Feng and Duan Wu Dao's facial expressions looked hideous. They were standing close to each other and staring at Lin Feng and his friends. He thought that it would be easy to steal Jun Emoshi's golden robe, but it didn't turn out his way. The fight itself was monstrously difficult. Huang Feng and the others had turned out to be weaker than Lin Feng and his friends. Lin Feng alone was able to cope with Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao. Jun Emoshi could deal with Huang Feng. Huang Fulong was able to cope with Ao Jiao. Ao Jiao and Huang Fulong stopped fighting. It looked like they wouldn't be able to steal the treasures this time. My friends, I have a healing pill here that we can share, said Lin Feng. Flames started burning around his body and subtle sounds spread in the air. His sword qi was increasingly powerful. Lin Feng's body was entirely surrounded by whistling sword and fire energy. The young leaders of Jade Heaven and the East Sea Dragon Palace, as well as Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling, wished they could have benefited from it. Lin Feng's friends wanted to know what he was planning when they sensed all that energy. They looked excited, their eyes were twinkling. Those bastards had come to steal their treasures and lost completely. Plus, Lin Feng had a healing pill, so they had nothing to fear. Let me join in, shouted Huang Fulong furiously. A dragon appeared from his body and rose up. A terrifying energy shot out from the dragon axe. It seemed like it could destroy the entire world. Jun Emoshi's energy of righteousness invaded the sky. His terrifying pure qi was reflecting on his golden robe, out from which an incredibly dazzling light emerged. I'll go first, said Yun Fei Yang, laughing out loud. He jumped forwards and the force of the earth started rolling in waves. It seemed like Mother Earth was furious. The force was rolling like a tsunami. His pure qi continued crashing onto his bell, which kept releasing terrifying energies. Dong! The ancient bell had invaded the entire atmosphere, and the sound waves it emitted made the entire area vibrate. The energies were so powerful that the 4 enemies felt like suffocating. I'm second, said Jun Emoshi with a more serious tone. A million golden rays of light streaked across the sky at the 4 enemies. Firmament. Seal. Roar. The 4 enemies' facial expressions looked hideous. The firmament and sealed door energies invaded the atmosphere. A flood dragon from Ao Jiao's body. Huang Feng continued releasing monumental amounts of imperial qi, which collided with the golden qi, emitting crackling sounds. Blood splashed everywhere. Die! Shouted Huang Fulong furiously. The golden lights hadn't disappeared yet as Huang Fulong jumped up in the sky and released an extremely brutal strength, which he condensed into his dragon axe. His real dragon kept roaring loudly as his terrifying axe, and the real dragon plummeted towards the enemies. Boom boom boom. The 4 merciless enemies' energies crashed into the real dragon and the gigantic dragon axe. To the side, the light from a black lotus appeared. Lin Feng condensed all his pure qi into that black lotus, and at the same time released all his sword qi. Instantly, the entire world was invaded by death and void. Huang Feng had no choice, he needed to protect himself. In a flash, terrifying waves of imperial qi appeared in front of him. Ao Jiao spat out a small dragon image which turned into a dragon to block the attacks. The Black Lotus was going to swallow them as the atmosphere was filled with black flames. Duan Wu Dao hid behind Huang Feng. They were all turning black from the glow of the fire. Di Ling was in the worst position. He initially wanted to block the Black Lotus with his firmament energies, but Huang Fulong's axe destroyed it. Then the Black Lotus fell on him. His forearm burnt and fell off. In the middle of the fire, 2 pitch-black pupils appeared. Lin Feng appeared in front of the 4 enemies. Their hearts pounded painfully. Let's go. Ao Jiao turned into a flood dragon and used all his strength to escape. Huang Feng used all of his imperial qi to block the attacks while Duan Wu Dao followed suit as well. Di Ling wasn't not able to retreat. Lin Feng blocked him with a punch. Even if you join the East Sea Dragon Palace, I will kill you, said Lin Feng. A hand filled with deadly energies crashed onto Di Ling's, cracking it wide open. Di Ling finally died. Chapter 800. The omniscience of the stars roar. Huang Fulong roared furiously. It sounded like he didn't want to finish yet. He wanted to throw his dragon axe at them from the distance. Huang Fulong, shouted Lin Feng. Huang Fulong turned his head and asked, Are we not chasing them? No need, we will meet them again, said Lin Feng while shaking his head. Ao Jiao and Huang Feng were the leaders of Jade Heaven and the East Sea Dragon Palace groups. Lin Feng watched as the 3 silhouettes in the horizon left discontent. It was unfortunate that they hadn't managed to kill all of them, otherwise Lin Feng would be overjoyed. Lin Feng broke the healing pill and shared it with the others. They all took the medicine, and as expected, they recovered quickly. Jun Emoshi and Yun Fei Yang knew that Lin Feng used that same medicine back during that crucial moment of the great competition. Lin Feng, your Black Lotus is even more terrifying. If you used it against me, I would die without contest, said Jun Emoshi, smiling wryly and shaking his head. Lin Feng's power was really monstrous. Yep, even with my ancient bell, I would die in a flash, agreed Yun Fei Yang, nodding. They sensed Lin Feng's Black Lotus as it struck, and it left an impression. How terrifying. Nothing could stop it. Not even Ao Jiao's dragon and Huang Feng's boundless imperial qi. They had all almost burnt as well. What are you guys talking about? Haha. Lin Feng would never do you any harm. Giggled Huang Fulong. Yun Fei Yang and Jun Emoshi laughed as well. Lin Feng's fire was becoming even stronger. Lin Feng and his 3 friends were safe in the mysterious world if they stayed together. Lin Feng smiled indifferently while looking at the blood pool. There were bubbles and foam on the surface. Tang Yu came out of the pool. A bright red light was twinkling on her body. Yu, how are you? Asked Lin Feng. He had already bathed in the blood pool and became stronger. His muscles and blood vessels were so strong that he could kill people of the 8th Xian Qi layer without making pure qi flow. Coupled with his Haruka's strength, he could easily destroy ordinary cultivators of the 9th Xian Qi layer. Besides, his spirit had changed after the bath. He was convinced that if he had another opportunity to absorb essence, it would be extremely beneficial for his spirit. That blood pool doesn't really suit me, but my muscles and flesh still became stronger, replied Tang Yu. That's already good then. At least, it will be even more difficult for you to be injured by ordinary attacks, said Lin Feng while smiling. The blood pool couldn't suit everybody to the fullest. I found this in the blood pool as well, said Tang Yu, opening the palm of her hand and revealing a dazzling golden light. Tang Yu had a scale in her hand. It was large and possessed an incredible qi. It's a dragon scale. Lin Feng was surprised. That dragon scale was releasing an incredible qi. It does look like a dragon scale, so maybe it belonged to the Zun cultivator, said Tang Yu. Lin Feng was captivated. In his previous world, dragons were legendary creatures. In the world of cultivation, there were many incredible creatures. Maybe someday he would be able to see a real dragon. Huang Fulong, it's for you, said Tang Yu, throwing the scale at Huang Fulong. He caught it and looked at it. He then smiled and said, There is a great power in that thing, but it would be a waste for me to keep it. I wouldn't know how to use it. Lin Feng, keep it and maybe you'll be able to use it someday. Lin Feng accepted it. He gave it a quick glance and put it away. He didn't think about it too much. Just like Huang Fulong said, it seemed to contain an incredible strength, but if he didn't know how to use it, then it was just a waste. Huang Fulong, what do you intend to do with the blood pool? Asked Lin Feng. It might have belonged to his ancestor, so Huang Fulong could actually decide how to deal with it. There is still more strength inside, and it was made by an extremely strong cultivator. I don't want to waste that power, said Huang Fulong. Lin Feng nodded. Huang Fulong was quite careless and usually adopted a detached attitude, but he seemed to give this thought. 3 palaces have been found, so there is still one left. They hadn't heard anything about the great emperor's grave, so they had to find the 4th underground palace. Look there, said Tang Yu, pointing behind Lin Feng. Lin Feng and the others turned around and saw some starlights in the horizon. Lin Feng immediately recognized that they were Yu Tianji's. Has Yu Tianji found something? Let's go and see. Lin Feng jumped in that direction, the others immediately following him. Wait. I'm not done speaking, shouted Huang Fulong, but the others were already too far away. He had thought, if we find the 4 palaces and use their teachings, we might find the emperor's grave, but nothing is guaranteed. Huang Fulong's silhouette flickered as he hurried to catch up with the others. In the distance, Yu Tianji was standing at the entrance of a palace. There were many corpses in front of him, and the starlights in his eyes looked dazzling. Yu Tianji turned around, bowed in front of the entrance and whispered, "Thank you, I am infinitely grateful. I will always follow my principles and walk on the right path." Yu Tianji then stomped on the ground and the palace started collapsing on itself, unable to appear again. Yu Tianji raised his head and looked at the starlights disappearing. He then whispered, "I've always believed in the stars. It has been 1,000 years, was this fate?" The 4 Zun cultivators' palaces were found, so the great emperor's grave would likely be found as well. But by whom? Yu Tianji wanted the omniscience of the stars, but he couldn't obtain it yet. He was just a cultivator of the Xianqi layer. Could the great emperor be immortal? Why did he have a grave then? Yu Tianji took out a star disk and put his hand on it. Even though he wasn't omniscient, his star skills were incredibly powerful. At least, he could estimate an approximate location of the great emperor's grave. The Great Bear's lights were reflecting on the star disk. 7 rays of light started revolving. 4 of them stopped on the 4 locations where the Zun cultivators' palaces were. The 3 others kept moving, surprising Yu Tianji. Bang! His star disk had broken. Yu Tianji shook his head and smiled wryly. His silhouette flickered, now he could only rely on luck. The 4 Zun cultivators' palaces were found, so he was convinced that the great emperor's grave would appear very soon. Chapter 801. Palace hologram. Lin Feng and his friends arrived at the palace to find a pile of corpses on the ground. "How tranquil," whispered Lin Feng. "The 4th palace has already been found," said Jun Moshi. Huang Fulong and Yun Feiyang nodded. Yes, someone must have obtained great treasures. As expected, Lin Feng noted that the 4 palaces were found and now wondered where the great emperor's palaces was. "Hehe. I think I can find the great emperor's grave," said Huang Fulong, giggling. Instantly the others looked at him. Could he really find it? "I learnt many things from the Zun cultivator at the pool. Nobody knows where his grave is, but it has to be on a vein of earth where dragon chi is extremely dense. The 4 Zun cultivators' palaces are on veins of earth where dragon chi is. Now that they have all been found, the dragon chi is much denser than before, so I can use my dragon blood spirit to sense where the densest dragon chi is," said Huang Fulong, still giggling. The fact that the dragon chi was initially not perceptible meant that the great emperor's palace had to be discovered first. Everything was preordained fate. "Can you sense the dragon chi now?" asked Lin Feng to Huang Fulong. Huang Fulong's eyes were twinkling while pointing in one direction. That is where the dragon chi is the densest. The place that Huang Fulong pointed was in the middle of the 4 palaces. Many had already found out about the palaces, so there was no time to waste. They all went in that direction, finding nothing on their way. The center of the region was a vast and desolate area, devoid of chi and corpses. That place seemed so uninteresting that nobody would have wanted to stop there. Could the great emperor of legends be underground? Thought Lin Feng. There is nothing there, but if the great emperor is here, it has to be underground. Huang Fulong, we are following your instincts, said Lin Feng. Huang Fulong nodded. His silhouette flickered and he pressed himself against the ground. He could sense the dragon chi the best if he got closer to the ground. Lin Feng and his friends continued to move around but saw no one. The strong cultivators who came to the mysterious world were looking for treasure. Nothing else. The dragon chi is incredibly dense, said Huang Fulong, smiling. His senses wouldn't betray when it came to sensing dragon energy. If the grave really was at the place where the dragon chi was the densest, then they were very close. What would happen if they found his grave? Maybe finding the great emperor's grave would lead to their deaths. Maybe the great emperor wanted them to receive his teachings, or maybe he didn't want to be found at all. Regardless, the great emperor's grave definitely contained some amazing treasures. He buried his people with him, so it was easy to believe that he buried his treasures as well. What a powerful dragon chi, said Huang Fulong, walking slower and slower. He was walking around slowly, step by step. Huang Fulong stopped, raised his head and looked around. There was nothing. There were some white clouds in the sky and only dust on the ground. However, Huang Fulong was convinced there would be something there. You also found the place, someone said. Lin Feng and his friends looked at the person coming towards them. TT was Yu Tianji. He had also found the place, but he was frowning because nothing happened there. Nothing happened. I have the strange impression that the great emperor's grave might be here, but I've been turning around for a while and haven't seen anything. It's a boundless and desolate place, said Yu Tianji before continuing. Of course, I could be mistaken. I have the same impression as you, so we can't be mistaken, said Huang Fulong. His blood was flowing quickly as if it were boiling. How could I be mistaken? There's a very powerful dragon chi here, just like you said. If the great emperor's grave really exists, it must be here. I'm going underground to see, said Huang Fulong while taking down his dragon axe. He stomped onto the ground, making it shake and crack. Then he dove in. No use, I already tried that. Yu Tianji shook his head. As expected, Huang Fulong came back out after a while and looked annoyed. He explored the depths of the area but found nothing. The dragon chi is so thick and dense, what could be the cause? Could it be that my ancestor lied to me? Cursed Huang Fulong in a low voice. He felt very uncomfortable. His chi was revolving intensely. Huang Fulong. Lin Feng looked astonished. He was staring at Huang Fulong. Everybody else was looking at him as well. What's wrong? Asked Huang Fulong, surprised to see everyone look at him. He scratched his head in a confused way. Why were they looking at him? On your body, they all stared at Huang Fulong's body. There was a drawing on it. There was a magnificent pattern on his body, the pattern of a gigantic palace. The hologram of a palace was on Huang Fulong's body. What is going on? Lin Feng and his friend's pupils shrank. They inspected it closer but didn't see anything. However, the hologram on his body looked real. Release the strength of your blood spirit and the dragon chi, said Lin Feng as if he had thought of something. Okay, said Huang Fulong, nodding. Even though he didn't understand what Lin Feng meant, he still obeyed and released the strength of his blood spirit and chi. His chi was incredibly powerful. It seemed like dragons were furiously roaring inside. The hologram became more and more distinct. That palace was vast, majestic, it seemed endless. Is that a palace or a grave? Asked Lin Feng to the others. The hologram was becoming more clear. Chapter 802. The atmosphere is collapsing. Why would the hologram have the shape of a palace? Lin Feng and the others' heart was pounding. At that moment, Lin Feng's pupils shrank. He was gazing in the distance and noticed a gigantic palace forming. The illusion was in suspension and slowly appearing. It looked majestic, imposing, like an emperor's palace, containing some chi of righteousness. Is it an illusion? No one could figure it out. No wonder nobody found the emperor's grave before. They had to have real dragon energy to find it. The palace seemed to be a place sealed away from the mysterious world. The great emperor's grave. Finally, they found the emperor's grave. It had to be his palace. They flew all over the mysterious world and now they finally found the great emperor's grave. Probably for the first time in 1,000 years. Lin Feng and his friends weren't the only ones to notice. There were many others who were observing in the distance. The reflection of the palace was twinkling in their eyes. They felt excited and nervous at the same time. Was that the great emperor's grave? Dong! In a flash, the whole crowd saw a gigantic cloud of foaming qi condensing into a palace. The atmosphere began shaking. The wind became abrasive and chaotic rays of light shot towards the palace. At that moment, everybody stopped moving and looked at the same thing. There were even some in the sky who were blown away by the furious wind. No matter where one was, if they neared the palace, they would suddenly be far away again. Boom! Sand splashed all around in the storm. The earth and the sky were trembling. Lin Feng and his friends were in the middle of that storm. They could sense an immense pressure. So strong they felt suffocated. That palace is burying everything, whispered Lin Feng. The palace was enveloping everybody. It seemed like they were going to be buried. Let us go, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and ran towards the palace. The others immediately followed him. Lin Feng wasn't the only one. It was everyone's dream to find the palace. They all flew towards the palace. Had the great emperor's grave finally appeared? Did that vast palace contain the most amazing treasures? Because Lin Feng and his friends were already so close to the palace, they were the first ones to arrive. They felt oppressed in front of such a huge and impressive palace. The great and respectful emperor had buried himself in this palace-like coffin. Even dead, he remained dignified. Let's go and see if there is an entrance somewhere. They all began looking around the palace for an entrance. Here. Huang Fulong pointed at a golden dragon. That golden dragon looked full of vitality. Its mouth was large enough for several people to enter. Lin Feng, are we going in or not? Asked Huang Fulong. He seemed hesitant after all. Nobody knew if the palace was dangerous or not. Let's see if there aren't any other entrances, said Lin Feng, decided not to enter immediately. Very quickly, he narrowed his eyes and found 9 dragon statues. All of them had their mouths open. Lin Feng and the others were perplexed. They couldn't determine which doors were dangerous, if any. What do you think? Lin Feng asked Yu Tianji. Yu Tianji could use the power of the stars, so Lin Feng assumed he could analyze things better than others. Let's wait. Perhaps others will be able to determine it, replied Yu Tianji. Lin Feng didn't want to take the risk carelessly. More and more were appearing in the area. They obviously realized that the dragon mouths were entrances, but they also hesitated. Should they enter or not? I'll take the risk. If nobody else enters, I will. If I manage to choose correctly, I'll get the treasures. Someone said next to Lin Feng, and entered a dragon's mouth. A horrible shriek spread in the air. Everybody were suddenly relieved that they hadn't chosen to enter. Boom 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 catcha. The atmosphere seemed to be collapsing. The ground was shaking. Waves of sands and dust were rolling in the air as a gloomy cloud enveloped everything. It seemed like the world was turning upside down. Kung! A strident sound spread in the air, piercing through people's eardrums. A huge crack appeared in the ground. How scary! What is going on? Thought everyone with their hearts pounding. After the emperor's palace appeared, the atmosphere began trembling and everything turned into chaos. A terrifying death qi had invaded the atmosphere. Are we all going to be buried in the mysterious world? Thought Yu Tianji, gazing into the distance. Deadly qi was rising and enveloping the atmosphere. Look, what's that? Someone shouted. Many glittering, translucent, little spears appeared on the horizon. They were dazzling and contained a terrifying qi. Intent and abstruse crystals? Lin Feng and the others narrowed their eyes. In a flash, Lin Feng jumped into the sky. He shook his hands and dazzling crystals appeared. Intent immediately emerged from the crystals. Lin Feng looked solemn as expected. They were intent crystals. So many intent crystals, everyone was excited. The windstorm brought intent crystals towards them. Boom boom boom. Terrifying rays of energy invaded the atmosphere. Everybody began flying around to grab the crystals. Even cultivators of the Tianqi layer would benefit from them. But what everyone wanted the most were abstruse crystals. If they could grab such crystals and offer them to the respected cultivators of their sex, clans etc., then they would earn instant respect and power. Chapter 803. Jade Heaven Imperial Clan, go and grab a few to help you during your practice, Lin Feng said to the others. His friends nodded, they obviously understood their importance. Gotcha. The sounds in the atmosphere were becoming more intense. The ground and sky were collapsing. Lin Feng frowned. That emperor really wanted to bury everyone with him. If they didn't enter the emperor's palace, they would all be exterminated with the mysterious world. Many intent and abstruse crystals were not caught by people. They blew away towards the emperor's palace and disappeared inside. They continued strength to the emperor's grave. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered here and there. He continued grabbing intent crystals. Then he said to the others, everybody, come back. We have to find a solution to get in the palace. They gathered together again. Everybody had obtained some intent crystals, it seemed. The sky was dark and apocalyptic. It's a grave as expected, it's a grave. The emperor doesn't want to be disturbed in his grave. He just wants to annihilate us and rest in peace with him, whispered Yu Tianji. Not necessarily. Lin Feng added, with his strength, if the emperor didn't want us to find his grave, we would have never found it. He left us some clues, the Imperial and Dragon Qi. In other words, he wanted a select few to find him. It's like Huang Fulong's ancestor who left clues for Huang Fulong. Yu Tianji nodded, that sounded very plausible. Even though the emperor was trying to destroy the mysterious world and bury everyone else with him, he wanted a few to find him. What you mean to say is that the emperor was waiting for someone to pass on his knowledge and treasures. That person must have some dragon blood, and/or some imperial blood, said Yu Tianji, who turned to Huang Fulong. Can you understand how to enter the palace? Huang Fulong shook his head. Have you forgotten? The emperor was chased by the demoniac emperor, so the demoniac emperor may have chased him inside and destroyed the palace. Yun Feiyang offered a different view. The demoniac emperor? Yun Tianji looked perplexed. Indeed, the demonic emperor had chased the great emperor. Let's pretend it happened like that. With means of extraordinary skills and abilities, the demonic emperor was able to enter the palace. But it doesn't mean that we are able to enter using the same method, said Yu Tianji, shaking his head. We can only rely on ourselves. What do you mean? Asked Lin Feng. There are 9 dragons, so maybe one of them really is an entrance we have to think about. There is an option. Maybe the emperor had offspring and that descendant is amongst us. If we find his offspring, we follow them inside, explained Yu Tianji slowly. Of course, the great emperor wouldn't miss the opportunity to transmit his knowledge and treasures to his offspring. He would bury everybody in the mysterious world with him, but he would protect those who shared his blood. We have to hurry, said Lin Feng, watching the storm. Let's group into twos, you and I, Emoshi, and Yu Tianji, Feiyang, and Huang Fulong. If anyone finds the entrance, call out. Okay, said Yu Tianji. They really needed to hurry. Tang Yu and Lin Feng headed towards the second dragon. There were already many who gathered there. They were all staring at the mouth, wondering if they could enter or not. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd and saw one person in particular. They wore a purple golden robe with a dragon pattern on it. Lin Feng threw himself at him with incredible speed. They were astonished. Lin Feng was so impulsive. 5 fingers turned into golden claws as the chant of the dragons sounded. Lin Feng released some sword qi and condensed level 6 sword intented into one finger. A metallic sound clanked in the air as the member of the East Sea Dragon Palace emitted a horrible shriek. His arm was hanging loose and he was in agony. Lin Feng lunged forward to grab his opponent. He wanted to escape? Unfortunately, he wasn't as fast as Lin Feng. Lin Feng held him by the neck and choked him. It seemed like his veins were going to explode. He looked terrified. How brutal! The crowd was speechless watching Lin Feng. He wanted to kill a member of the East Sea Dragon Palace. They watched as Lin Feng jumped towards the mouth of the dragon and put the cultivator inside. At the same time, he released a terrifying sword qi to block the entry. If you don't enter, I'll kill you. A terrifying sword qi moved towards that person. An infinite sword light invaded the atmosphere and that person's face paled. If that sword energy reached him, he would definitely die. A bastard! Shouted that person and threw himself into the mouth of the dragon. A terrifying strength came out and that person gave a horrible shriek. How brutal! Lin Feng used him to see if it was safe to enter. Let's go, said Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu, leaving with incredible. Others also started to follow Lin Feng and his friends. Yun Fei Yang and Huang Fulong arrived at the fifth entrance. There were others there as well. A great battle was taking place. With the storm already so oppressive, how could they still have time to fight? Yun Fei Yang felt less safe as he approached. There was a group of people killing everybody else that arrived. Someone looked at them with disdain. It was Huang Feng and Duan Wu Dao. They were the ones who were killing mercilessly. Very quickly, the battle continued and more cultivators died. Those who remained alive seemed to be those who joined hands. Leave, Huang Feng said coldly to Yun Fei Yang. Immediately after that, his imperial robe fluttered in the wind as he threw himself into the mouth of the dragon. No deadly chi emerged and no horrible shriek either. The Jade Heaven Imperial Clan, Yu Tianji had guessed it. Chapter 804. The grave. Those people were from the Jade Heaven Imperial Clan and were moving fast. It wasn't long before they all went into the dragon's mouth. Huang Fulong and Yun Fei Yang looked at each other. Huang Fulong said, "Go tell the others, I'll stay here to guard the entrance." Okay. Yun Fei Yang's silhouette flickered and left to go and tell his friends where the entrance was. The storm was getting closer, but he still had a little bit of time. Boom boom boom. A loud sound resonated. Huang Fulong was startled at the entrance. After the Jade Heaven Imperial Clan entered, he only saw a magnificent and dazzling light come out of the dragon's mouth. Immediately after, the dragon statue became dazzling and golden. Its gigantic mouth slowly started closing itself. The only entrance would be closed. Oh no, thought Huang Fulong nervous. That was the only entrance they had found. Everyone from the Jade Heaven Imperial Clan had already entered. What if the other entrances were death traps? They would all die outside, crushed by the storm. Roar! Huang Fulong roared loudly and threw himself into the mouth. He put his hands up as to hold the dragon's mouth up and prevent it from closing. Even though Huang Fulong was strong, he wasn't able to prevent the gigantic dragon mouth from closing. Stop! Shouted Huang Fulong. It seemed like a dragon appeared around his body. He was holding the top of the mouth with both hands, using his monstrous strength to prevent the mouth from closing any more than it had already. Roar! He released an incredible amount of blood chi. He became so flushed that it looked like he was going to explode. Mustering all his strength, he finally managed to slow it down, but the rumbling sounds were spreading in the air. Can't you hurry? Shouted Huang Fulong furiously. His veins popped out from the struggle. When they saw Huang Fulong holding open the mouth and all the corpses on the ground, they seemed to understand something. It's an entrance. They immediately jumped into the entrance. Even though the mouth of the dragon became smaller, it could still accommodate a few people. We're in, said someone inside. It wasn't long before others came by and took advantage of Huang Fulong's situation. Who can help me here? People from your sects and clans can come in as well, shouted Huang Fulong loudly. The door was still closing itself. At that point, one already had to their head to fit in. They looked at Huang Fulong and grinned hideously. All of a sudden, someone attacked Huang Fulong. The attack reached Huang Fulong and made him groan with pain, but he still held the entrance open. He just yelled, "Bastard!" Arg! A terrifying chi was rolled in the atmosphere. It seemed like a dragon was chanting. However, the opponent already entered the grave without paying attention to Huang Fulong. As long as they could enter the grave, they were happy. They didn't care about the others who would die outside. That way, everything in the grave would be theirs. People continued to enter the grave. Before entering the grave, they were all courteous and friendly because they hoped he wouldn't just close the door in front of them. And each time after entering the grave, they punched Huang Fulong or attacked him with a sinister smile on their face. After a while, Huang Fulong was struggling. Blood spilled out of his mouth and he was kneeling on the ground. Roar! His blood was boiling. His dragon was still visible around his body. His knees were being crushed on the ground, but as before, his two hands held open the dragon's mouth. His eyes were filled with determination. If he gave up, his friends would die in the storm. At that moment, one could only crouch to get into the dragon's mouth. Some other people appeared, this time from Tianqi and more precisely from the Tianxian snowy peak. "Help me," said Huang Fulong, looking at Tianqi Shui and the others. Blood was still spilling out of his mouth as he asked for the help. Tianqi Shui's eyes were twinkling, she looked hesitant. "Help him," said Han Qiuyu, who was next to Tianqi Shui. A heaven book spirit appeared from behind him as he rushed over to Huang Fulong and protected him. He didn't possess physical strength, but he could still protect Huang Fulong from attacks. "Let's guard him from attacks," shouted Han Qiuyu to the other members of Tianqi. They all nodded and walked into the dragon mouth. But nobody helped Huang Fulong hold it open. "Go into the grave, everyone. Obtaining the emperor's treasures matters most for Tianqi," said Bai Li Shi. After that, he glanced at Huang Fulong and entered the grave. Tianqi didn't help because they were more worried about time. They had to hurry in the grave. Not many stayed back to help Huang Fulong. After thinking for a few seconds, Tianqi Shui entered the grave as well. Bai Li Shi was right, they had to become stronger for Tianqi. Besides, Tianqi Shui envied Lin Feng, Huang Fulong and the others. She was the pure and holy woman of Tianqi, but now that status wasn't as resplendent as before. She was selfish and egoistic. A few people from Tianqi decided to stay and help him. They were touched by Huang Fulong, so they guarded silently. Even though they weren't immediately entering the grave, they would keep their honor and wait until Huang Fulong couldn't hold on anymore. Then they would enter. Huang Fulong, Jun Emoshi and Yu Tianji came back. They were panicked to see his condition. They hurried inside and helped Huang Fulong hold the mouth open. 9 dragons and it was the 5th one, bastard, cursed Yu Tianji. His heart was filled with hatred. The storm outside was getting worse. "We can't hold out for much longer, where are they?" asked Jun Emoshi, looking nervous. Others came by, but it wasn't Lin Feng, Ao Jiao, Duan Wuya, etc. They silently looked at the grave and bowed respectfully before entering the grave. "Be careful," said Yu Tianji. He didn't trust anyone. He feared they would attack as soon as they entered. As expected, after they entered the grave, they laughed coldly, piercing to the bones. It wasn't long before Yun Feiyang, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu arrived. Because of the storm, Yun Feiyang hadn't found them easily. "Hurry up and get inside," shouted Yun Feiyang. He moved to the mouth and lifted it up a little bit. A gloomy and deadly qi reflected on the stars as waves of qi rolled towards them. Yu Tianji released an indestructible star to block the attack. "Eh!" Someone gave a horrible shriek as they were destroyed by the gloomy and deadly qi, but then it was blocked as it crashed on his star. Surprisingly, they weren't stopped by Yu Tianji. Lin Feng understood what Yu Tianji planned. The 3 of them turned into stars and entered the mouth of the dragon. They pulled Huang Fulong and Jun Emoshi back as they flew in. Boom, boom, boom. A loud sound resonated as the dragon's mouth closed itself to everyone outside. Once inside, they crossed a long corridor filled with dragon qi. Very quickly, they arrived on a dragon path, and then finally the great emperor's grave. Chapter 805. Path of Truth. Those from Jade Heaven Imperial Palace were the first to enter the palace. Somewhere in the palace, the young and strong cultivators of the Jade Heaven Imperial clan had all stopped. "Why? How?" Huang Feng was upset and pulled a long face. In his hands was a golden map. The map was so dazzling that it was difficult to say what it was made of. It even contained ancient imperial qi. Back then, the great emperor was chased by the demoniac emperor. He escaped and entered a world without an exit to leave his blood in this world. This map is sealed by the Jade Heaven Imperial clan and contains memories belonging to our ancestors, amongst which there is an incredible book called the Jade Scriptures. Unfortunately, our ancestor was not strong enough back when, so he couldn't transmit the memories to us. That's why he created the scriptures, which have been passed down from generation to generation. The Jade Heaven Imperial clan members know that they have to look for the Jade Heaven tomb, where they would find the Jade Scriptures, which would enable them to conquer the world. Huang Feng thought it out for a moment and he came up with a plausible explanation. Now 1,000 years have passed and the Jade Heaven Imperial clan has been quiet. From generation to generation we have been searching for the Jade Heaven tomb. When we find it, I want all the members of Peer clan to benefit from those scriptures. But it seems things have changed since back when the demoniac emperor chased the great emperor. There was a great war, so the map of the palace isn't accurate anymore. He understood that the last one who entered the palace was the demoniac emperor. After their great battle, some paths became blocked. There were holes in walls and so on. The palace was falling into ruins. What should we do? Asked Duanwu Dao. Huang Feng remained silent for a few seconds and said, everybody separate into 5 groups. Remember that our goal is to find the Jade Heaven Palace. You can leave the rest, said Huang Feng. The Jade Heaven Palace is a holy place for the Jade Heaven Imperial Palace. It also used to be where the Jade Heaven Imperial Palace's people lived. Besides all of that, there are the ancient Jade Scriptures. In the continent of the 9 clouds, becoming a monstrously strong cultivator was the only condition to be part of an imperial family, and only members of imperial families could use advanced skills. If the Jade Heaven Imperial clan managed to find their ancient Jade Scriptures, they would become infinitely stronger. They would conquer the Ganyu region, enter the holy city and become as prestigious, splendid and as glorious as they used to be. The Jade Heaven people were feeling all-conquering. In 1,000 years they were the first ones to enter their ancestors' grave. Lin Feng and the others looked around after they entered. Things didn't look as domineering and majestic as they thought. Instead it looked like ruins. Everybody seemed to have similar disappointments. There has been a great war here, people thought. Lin Feng and his friends were the only ones who knew what was going on. They knew that back then, the great emperor was chased by the demoniac emperor. So they immediately understood what happened here after a first glance. Oh my! There are intent crystals everywhere, someone shouted. They were breaking walls and finding twinkling stones everywhere. A terrifying strength exuded from them. Nobody was worried about fighting for the crystals because there were stones everywhere. The walls were made of intent stones. Everyone was mining with a frenzy. They needed those intent stones for when they broke through to the Tianqi layer. Then they would have amazing effects, or they could be traded for other amazing items. Intent stones were precious treasures for people of the Tianqi layer and below. However, for extremely strong cultivators they were just ordinary stones. You guys can go ahead. Lin Feng said to the people of Tianqi. If someday Lin Feng became the leader of Tianqi, he had to make sure it was powerful. They should take as much as they could now so future cultivators could benefit. Okay, said the others while nodding. They all started gathering intent stones. Huang Fulong, how do you feel? Lin Feng and Tang Yu both took out some healing pills for Huang Fulong's severe injuries. Even after a few healing pills he wouldn't recover completely. I'm okay, go ahead and pick some intent crystals, take some for me as well, said Huang Fulong, smiling in a free and natural way. Don't worry, we're in the great emperor's palace. To us, intent crystals are precious treasures, but for the great emperor, they are ordinary stones. There must be treasures much more valuable than those in here. Indeed, they were in the great emperor's palace, so how could it lack intent crystals? There were probably monstrously powerful items as well. Hehe, you're right, but it would be better to have some, so why not seize the opportunity now? I've never used such good items. And even if I can't use them, I can sell them. Huang Fulong was giggling. He made an effort to collect some of the crystals, ignoring his injuries. That guy, said Lin Feng, smiling and shaking his head. Even now he only thought about his friends. They were true friends. They all began picking intent crystals as well. Huang Fulong was right, why not seize that opportunity? Even if those crystals were nothing for the great emperor, they were treasures to them. At that moment, everyone was busy picking those treasures without thinking about anything else. Whenever someone felt like they had had enough, they would leave towards the inside of the palace. Weren't there even more amazing treasures awaiting for them in other places of the palace? Lin Feng and his friends soon started walking deeper into the palace. Everybody was hunting for treasures, and quite a few found abstruse crystals. Apart from intent and abstruse crystals, others found some extremely powerful ingredients and weapons, while others found pictures. The walls of the palace had those mysterious veins for which an energy had been flowing for 1,000 years. Lin Feng and friends come across a hall with a door that looked old and simple. At the top there was writing, Path of Truth. Ask questions and understand. That was where the great emperor sought the truth, said Lin Feng. While opening the door, a strident sound was heard. Inside the hall there was a precipice and a few statues which looked alive. Chapter 806. Eternal One Boom. They stared at the statues. Their brains felt like they were going to explode, as if something had placing a huge pressure on them. Their souls were even shaking. Their entire body seemed like it was going to explode. How scary, whispered Lin Feng. He stopped looking at them and moved towards the center of the hall. There were 4 statues and a few scriptures on the back wall. Lin Feng raised his head again. This time with sharp lights twinkling in his eyes, he stared at the statue. He suddenly felt suffocated. His body couldn't stop shaking, he couldn't breathe anymore. His throat was burning. The statues had an extraordinary intent. Are those the great emperor's statues? Lin Feng, Jun Emoshi, Yun Feiyang, Tang Yu and Huang Fulong were all there. Yu Tianji decided to explore alone. The first statue held a sword in its hand. It looked like it despised the entire world. Its facial expression could shake the entire world while its eyes defied both human and divine laws. As Lin Feng looked at that statue involuntarily, his level 6 sword intent emerged. However, when it neared the statue, it was immediately destroyed and vanished without leaving trace. Lin Feng's sword was extremely weak in front of the emperor's statue. The energy contained in the sword of the statue seemed to be infinite. If the statue wanted to kill him, it could do it in the blink of an eye. The Supreme Sword Emperor, reigning over the entire continent, afraid of nobody. No one wants to be his enemy because he can kill them with one sword attack. He stands high above the ordinary world and looks down on it. I put this statue here for the glory of swords and to help those who seek the truth on the path of sword cultivation. A few words were carved in the back. Even after 1,000 years, those words still looked distinct. Everybody could sense an incredible energy emerging from the words. They suddenly felt incredibly powerful. They were imagining themselves as the extremely strong cultivators from ancient times. The second statue was an incredibly beautiful woman. One couldn't look at her without falling in love at first. However, she wasn't beautiful in a vulgar way. She looked like a noble woman whom one wanted to respect. That woman looks so noble, she would definitely be reigning over the world if she existed, whispered Lin Feng. Lin Feng and his friends read the text behind the statue. Shi Huang. So many men have come to court her with the hopes to marry her. The emperor also had the wish to marry her. That would have been his greatest joy. Unfortunately, after becoming emperor, she aged and wasn't as beautiful anymore. She practiced cultivation diligently without caring about anything else. She chose loneliness for the sake of cultivation. Nobody knows when she is going to become an empress. Unfortunately, even if she does, she won't have the beauty of her youth. That text was filled with sorrow. Lin Feng didn't understand why she decided to singularly practice cultivation. He also didn't understand the meaning of the following sentence. She died, so how could she become an empress? Finally, the last sentence was just as fishy, the beauty of her youth? Nobody understood the text. Could cultivators use an incredible power before dying to reincarnate and continue practicing cultivation? Lin Feng couldn't understand such things. He was too weak to compare with the emperor. The emperor was almost a deity. Lin Feng turned to the third statue and shivered. That statue looked familiar. Even though it was a statue, it diffused rays of light as if it was moving. It looked like a demon and a Buddha at the same time. The 9 rotations of the Haruka. Lin Feng suddenly remembered why it was so familiar. Lin Feng's strength of the Harukas began rotating on its own, causing Lin Feng to shake. Could the owner of the statue have anything to do with the Haruka and its 9 rotations? Lin Feng turned around the statue and read the description. 3 Lives Sovereign is incredible and very mysterious. Using his body, he combined evil and good. 1 body turned into 3 and 3 bodies are 1. Thus the creation of the incredible skill 3 Lives skill. 3 lives, 3 people and 3 bodies which have their own life. If none of them dies, then the 3 Lives deity is invincible. In our vast and wonderful world, the 3 Lives skill is the most particular skill I've ever seen. Lin Feng's heart started pounding. 3 lives skill. Buddha, a demon and a regular person. Is that the strength contained in the 9 rotations of the Haruka? Could the 9 rotations of the Haruka have been created by the ancestor who created the 3 lives skill? Lin Feng's thoughts were chaotic. If someday he could acquire the 3 lives skill and turn into 3, he would become invincible. Besides, the 3 lives sovereign had the title sovereign. Were the titles of emperor and sovereign equal? Or could only extremely powerful emperors give the title of sovereign to others? Lin Feng didn't understand these things. The emperor placed the 4 statues there to borrow their incredible strength. He used to consult them. After reading the scriptures, one could see that the emperor feared those statues. Lin Feng looked at the last statue. It was the most ordinary one with nothing particular. From an aesthetics perspective, one could notice an incredible pride. One could see that the material world held no substance by looking in its eyes. Those 2 dark pupils resembled a demon's. Even the vault of heaven could be covered by their darkness. That statue was ego. Whoever offended it would pay with blood. A demon. Lin Feng's pupil shrank. That was demon intent. Despising the vault of heaven, smiling slyly. That unruly deity wanted to step on earth and crush it fearlessly. Demoniac emperor. Lin Feng suddenly remembered those 2 words. According to the legend, the demoniac emperor chased the great emperor and killed him. Lin Feng was startled. It seemed like his spirit was shaking suddenly. His heavenly book spirit was acting up after remaining calm for so long. Lin Feng frowned. Why was the statue exciting his book spirit? Lin Feng looked at the description behind the statue. Continent of the 9 clouds, the Eternal One. Peerless, named the demoniac emperor. A myriad of people are terrified by him. He is the first incomplete emperor, but can kill other emperors. Continent of the 9 clouds, the Eternal One. Lin Feng shivered. Lin Feng became excited. His heart was pounding as he imagined himself as a heroic cultivator. That was the real demoniac emperor. Nobody would dare offend him. Chapter 807. Magic Understanding the Supreme Sword Emperor, Shi Huang, the 3 lives sovereign, the demoniac emperor. I can't control my body when I look at those statues. My strength and energies flow chaotically, said Huang Fulong, surprised. How powerful. How did the great emperor create such powerful statues? I feel the same. If I look at them for too long, I have the impression that I'm going insane. Nodded Yunfei Yang. Shi Huang already died, but what about the others? A possibility is that the great emperor made the statues himself in accordance with what he heard and saw. If they were real cultivators, we wouldn't be able to look at them. Their terrifying intent would have killed us, said Jun Mo Shi. Everybody nodded as if they understood something. Indeed, only the sword intent of the Supreme Sword Emperor could kill them, but it was only a statue. I wish we could be as strong as them someday, said Huang Fulong, sounding impatient. Emperors were incredible beings. Even the emperor of an empire of average quality was nothing compared to them. Though they had never heard of a real emperor in the Ganyu region. That kind of cultivator was extremely rare. They were almost almighty. We will. The great emperor also started weak, but step by step, he practiced and became stronger, said Lin Feng, making Huang Fulong smile. He nodded at Lin Feng and said, indeed, maybe someday I'll be an emperor too, and you guys too. Everybody smiled in a radiant way, dreaming of becoming an emperor. I am going to try and understand the statues. If you think you need them, feel free to do so as well. Otherwise, hurry up and go search elsewhere so you can find something useful for yourself. Lin Feng didn't want to leave too quickly. Everyone can go, I'm staying with you, said Tang Yu, acting detached. Jun Emoshi looked at both of them and smiled. All right, we 3 will go elsewhere to try our luck with treasures. Yun Fei Yang and Huang Fulong didn't mind. If Tang Yu stayed with Lin Feng, she could wake him up if something happened. With Lin Feng's strength, only a handful of people would attack him. They closed the door as they left. Lin Feng smiled at Tang Yu. Yu, even though those 4 statues have nothing to do with your cultivation, you can try to understand some things from them. Who knows? It may be beneficial. I know, nodded Tang Yu. Then Lin Feng sat down cross-legged and meditated in front of the Supreme Sword Emperor's statue. He slowly closed his eyes and visualized the Supreme Sword Emperor holding his sword in one hand and assaulting the vaults of heaven. Supreme Sword Emperor, no limit. Lin Feng released a deadly qi and saw a gigantic sword in his thoughts. It was falling down from the sky as the entire universe became filled with sword qi. The sword qi was becoming increasingly intense. A terrifying endless sword qi fell down onto the hall. It was becoming more and more powerful. Tang Yuyu was staring at Lin Feng, looking captivated. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. Lin Feng's power of understanding was incredible. He had already been able to understand the supreme sword qi. Tang Yuyu wanted to participate too, but it was impossible because Lin Feng's sword was too powerful. She could only stand in the distance and watch Lin Feng. She didn't know that Lin Feng's power of understanding was incredible, and that the teaching of the 3 Zun cultivators taught him a lot. He learned the sword formula skill, and was able to visualize the 81 patterns. It seemed like there were many mysterious veins in his head, as if someone was there, dancing with a sword. Lin Feng's brain and heart became one. There was only sword energy and nothing else. He lost track of time. The supreme sword was filled with deadly qi. Its sword qi could destroy the earth. Its energy was like a million tsunamis falling on the earth at the same time. A heavy sound resonated as someone arrived in front of the room. They opened the door but shouted in surprise when they sensed the terrifying sword qi. There must be treasures. What a powerful sword qi! That person's heart was pounding. Tang Yuyu closed the door again with a heavy sound. She wanted Lin Feng to practice in peace. She could feel his sword intent rising. The supreme sword qi became more intense. It seemed like it could annihilate anything. It was emitting crackling sounds in the air as the statue began crumbling. Soon after, it turned into ashes and disappeared without leaving a trace. The supreme sword qi and intent disappeared with the statue. He leveled up. Tang Yuyu's heart was pounding. Lin Feng opened his eyes, looking proud and majestic. Lin Feng clenched his fists and smiled. He didn't break through to the Tianqi layer yet, but his sword intent was already level 7. People of the same level couldn't defeat him anymore. After breaking through to the Tianqi layer, others probably still couldn't defeat him. Lin Feng stood up and walked towards Shi Huang's statue. He stared deep into her eyes and then walked towards the 3 Lives Sovereign. He sat down cross-legged in front of him. Lin Feng emptied his heart as the strength of the Harukas started rotating with incredible speed. At the same time in Lin Feng's brain, a large battle between the Buddha and demon appeared. The owner of the palace used tricks to create the statues, but even though they're not the real deal, they can still stir up my strength of the Harukas, thought Lin Feng. The strength of the Harukas continued flowing through his body and muscles. His strength was amplifying. Lin Feng couldn't clearly understand the 3 Lives scriptures at that moment. He pinpointed what connected the strength of the Harukas and the 3 Lives skills. He was very curious and wanted to know more though. Unfortunately, learning Emperor skills was too difficult. Even if Lin Feng could only understand a tiny part of the sovereign scriptures, he would already become stronger. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.